it's kind of a short meeting today, but we're going to go ahead and try to get through our agenda items. But before we start, I just want to take a few moments and ask us to pause in silence for the lives that were lost out in California, to be with our partners, our commissions, and also our firefighters that are down there, and think about the people. I mean, Oregon has experienced this before, and we know what it feels like. And so I just want to take a moment for us and pause. Right. With that said, I don't like to start the morning kind of in a solemn way, but I think it was important for us to think about this because this is something that all of us really are experiencing. And so hopefully Oregon's past that. And but we will support our partners and our commission down there. All right, we do have some public comment this morning, and so I'm going to move along to that. I believe it's all virtual, and I'm not seeing anything, so we may not be able to. We're close. All right. Is JT's on? Okay. So JT Flowers, hi, good morning, JT.
Hey, good morning. How you doing, Chair Brown?
I am doing great. Thank you very much.
Oh, is that I'm being called to testify?
Yes, you are. So it's all right.
Uh,
I'm just as confused as you are this morning. It's a little, it's okay. We've got you up and you're in front of us now. Happy New Year.
Happy
The
New Year to
floor
the
is yours.
commission. For the record, my name is JT Flowers. I'm the Director of Government Affairs and Communications for the Albina Vision Trust. Sorry I couldn't be with you in person today, but join you in sending not only condolences, but good energy and prayers down to our peers, family members, colleagues down in California. As Oregonians, were deeply impacted and affected by wildfires across this state, and it's something that's top of mind for us here as well. So thank you for starting the meeting that way. I'll be brief today. I don't want to ramble on. You folks have seen plenty of me over the course of the past year, but just wanted to commend the OTC for your constant leadership as it pertains to the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project. This project has renewed life, renewed energy, and that has not been solely a testament to the investment of community, to the investment of the Albina Vision Trust, the Historic Albina Advisory Board, and the project partners who are advancing the work on a day-to-day basis. It's also been a testament to your unwavering faith and commitment to the promise that this project represents on a statewide level. I know that there are several folks who will be joining us to testify today, so I won't try to take anybody else's talking points, but all I can say on our end is we are fully committed to the delivery of a full project here. I reflect back to about a year and a half ago when U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg joined us here in Oregon. When he came to the Portland metro area, he visited two projects. He went with the governor to 82nd Avenue, and he came down to meet with and visit the Albina Vision Trust team. And after learning about our work, he said that of all the projects he's seen in the country, our work is not only the most audacious, but the most feasible as well. And I think that was directly reflected back in March of 2024 with an unprecedented award of $488.5 million to the state of Oregon. I'm really excited to see what the future holds, excited to get shovels in the ground on this project, but more importantly, excited to show the rest of the country what our state is capable of delivering when we band together and work together, not just to represent and advance the work of some of us, but to truly represent and advance the work of all of us. So thank you for your time. We appreciate your leadership, and that does it for me today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. The next person that is slated to speak is Bryson Davis. Is Bryson on? There he is. Great. Good morning. I believe you're muted.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
I assume I'm up. I lost the audio when I got.
It's all right. Yes, you are. Good morning, Bryson.
Good morning. So I will also keep my comments fairly brief, because I like JT, have really appreciated the work and the commitment that the OTC has shown to this project. I remember there's an old clip of former Governor Tom McCall talking about how highway engineers and transportation folks would build an 8-lane highway through the Taj Mahal. And the point of that clip and the point of his speech was that at the time, highway engineers were so focused on just the transportation component of the transportation work and not thinking about the bigger picture of transportation and how the transportation landscape can be used to better cities and communities in the state that we live in, and how much of an issue that was at the time. And I think that the OTC's leadership on this project and this project as a whole is showing that we can think about transportation in a more holistic way and really think about transportation and the transportation budget and how we build highways, how we improve our transportation infrastructure in a way where we're really benefiting the community as a whole, benefiting our city as a whole, and really providing benefit to the entire state. I think about all of the transportation projects that people have derided in the past that I've known about, bridges to nowhere and all that sort of stuff. And this project really has a positive impact, or will have a positive impact on many different people, and really all aspects of commerce, all aspects of community in our state. And I'm so excited to be a part of the project. I'm so excited that it's gotten the support from your panel that it's gotten, and I'm happy to I'm gonna be really excited once we start getting shovels in the ground, which is what this first step is all about. And so, like, just like JT, I appreciate the work that you're doing. I appreciate your support, and I think we're really doing Portland, Oregon, and specifically the Black community. I think we're really going to have a positive impact with what's being done here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I believe the next person is Donnie Oliveira. If I said your name wrong, I apologize. There we go.
Good. All right. Good morning, Commissioners.
morning.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you. For the record, my name is Donnie Oliveira, and I'm the Deputy City Administrator, the City of Portland, overseeing community and economic development. So for many years now, with maybe a pause in the middle, the City of Portland has been a staunch supporter and partner on the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project, working with you all, ODOT, and our community partners to support the planning and construction of the work. When Portland City Commissioners addressed this commission in November of 23, they conveyed the importance of this project to the city and to recognize the ongoing and extensive collaboration among the partners to advance this catalytic investment. I'm here today as the City of Portland's new government takes hold to reaffirm the city's ongoing commitment to our partners and to unequivocally let this commission know that we are grateful for your continued support. So first, thank you for one, approving the allocation of $250 million of statewide transportation improvement program dollars to the Rose Quarter Improvement Project last month. And second, thank you for furthering that commitment today to formalize that allocation. We recognize and appreciate your ongoing support for this work. The $250 million allocation provides supplemental funding for the project, and combined with the $450 million Reconnecting Communities Capital Grant awarded to ODOT by the federal government, it will allow for the construction of the project this year. Bravo. And beyond the importance of activation, your investment will allow for a larger segment of the planned highway cover that would otherwise be not possible. And if I can leave you with one key takeaway after my gratitude, it's this. The highway cover is a critical feature of the project as we collectively work to return housing and grow new economic opportunities in that area that leverage private investment from partners like the Trailblazers. As the city of Portland rebounds, and I truly believe good days are ahead for us, addressing past harms is a core to that pathway. But the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project goes beyond just the city. It is a project of statewide significance as it contributes to the economic output, vitality, and the tax base of the entire state. The project not only contributes to the statewide economy through improved movement of goods and people, but also enhances key regional sports and entertainment venues attended by visitors from throughout the state and more broadly. The Portland Trailblazers and Moda Center currently generate $600 million in annual economic activity, drawing an estimated 1.5 million visitors and support thousands of jobs. And based on 2022 data, that generated $19 million in state tax revenue, a number that is anticipated to grow. Ensuring investment in both the highway cover and transportation improvements will also serve as a national model for how transportation infrastructure and community building can be done together to achieve inclusive economic growth and positive generational outcomes for our state and region. And as the Deputy City Administrator in charge of the city's community and economic development area, that includes long-range planning, housing, economic growth, and our spectator facilities, I can say that this project is the highest priority to deliver on the commitments and goals of this city to be our best. The transformative nature of this investment cannot be understated. Beyond the job creation, economic vitality, it will activate our neighborhoods. The impact surrounding the district is equally important to me as the broader economic value. Reconnected and improved local streets within that district, enabled by the construction of the entire highway cover, not only helps support the equitable development goals of Lower Albina and the Albina Vision Trust, but also improves access to our regional sports and entertainment venues. It's rare that a project can not only deliver value directly, but indirectly create opportunities for additional activation and development within enhanced public spaces. This is a generational investment. This is a future city building moment, and together these improvements will increase the city's attractiveness to visitors and multiply the statewide economic impact of increased tourism. But you know better than most, the work is not done, as the project is not yet fully funded, and the current funding only covers the cost to construct 10% of the total highway cover. It is therefore important to acknowledge that the work to identify the additional resources to complete the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project is ongoing and of importance to us all. The data is clear and demonstrates the critical importance of this work to the economic, environmental health, and well-being of Portland and the entire state. I look forward to working together with you and other state leaders to close the funding gap that is needed to complete the project so that we can realize the benefits as soon as possible, and really deliver on that promise that we made to community a long time ago. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I believe Charles Boyle is next.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Brown, members of the commission. My name is Charles Boyle. I'm the Public Affairs Director for the Portland Trailblazers and RIP City Management. We support a fully funded, complete I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project. The project will improve safety and functionality of the Rose Quarter and help to drive economic growth in a reconnected Albina neighborhood. As Mr. Oliveira just noted, the Blazers and the Rose Quarter generate $600 million in regional economic activity and attract nearly 1.5 visitors each year. In one 90-day stretch this summer, we hosted 50 concerts and events with more than 300,000 attendees here in Lower Albina. Beginning in the summer of 2026, the Rose Quarter will also be the home of Portland's new WNBA franchise. And in 2030, we will host the NCAA Women's Final Four, putting Portland on the national stage. The Blazers are committed to a revitalized Portland. This summer, we launched the Albina Rose Alliance, which is a partnership with the Albina Vision Trust for restorative development in our neighborhood. We continue to work towards a significant Moda Center renovation to revitalize the Rose Quarter and, in turn, help restore Lower Albina as the economic, residential, entertainment, and cultural heart of Portland. As part of a complete I-5 project, the Blazers have worked with partners to identify the Wheeler-Williams connection as the preferred option to relocate the southbound off-ramp. Routing off-ramp traffic away from parking garages, busy crosswalks, and vehicles re-entering I-5 will help to maximize safety and mitigate congestion on event days. It's critical that we get the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project right, which means securing full funding. We look forward to continuing to partner with all involved to mitigate construction impacts of this project. Working together, we can help ensure the Rose Quarter has the transportation infrastructure in place to host national events in 2030 and beyond. Only by completing a full project can we realize the shared goals of the neighborhood, the city, the state of Oregon, and the organizations represented here today. So thank you again for your support for this project and for your leadership.
Thank you for your comment. And I believe the last person virtually will be Jeff Moreland.
Am I on?
You are. Good morning.
Okay. Well, good morning to everybody. I'll keep my stuff brief as well. I just want to thank the OTC for its commitment to this project. And then want to highlight the importance of us finally really getting this project going. I agree with Bryson and JT Flowers and the other panelists that spoke, is that we are looking forward to building this entire project, but we're definitely excited about us finally really getting started. Again, this project not only fixes one of the worst bottlenecks that benefits the entire region, but it will inject much needed economic opportunities in a community that desperately needs it. Over several years, many of us have highlighted that the sheer size of this project and its duration, we have a unprecedented opportunity to create economics through living wage employment, workforce development, contracting opportunities that can absolutely be transformative. And because of the duration of this project, we have the ability to build some sustainability into it. I'm very thankful for the commitment of ODOT and the contractors that's on board, the JV contractor, which I'm a part of, the Historic Albina Advisory Committee, and the Community Oversight Board, and all the other community organizations, AVT, for helping us all develop a comprehensive diversity plan that will allow us to build much needed economics in the community, our community of color, specifically in the historic Black Albina community. Our plan includes, this again, job creation, employment support, advancement, technical support, and contracting opportunities that can lead to capacity building that can be long-term and sustainable for our community. Again, I'm just very thankful for this opportunity that we're finally moving forward, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. And our last person to speak this morning is Jana Jarvis, and Jana is in person, so she makes her way up. Let's see. You should. There, now it's on. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Chair Brown, Commissioners, Director. I'm Jana Jarvis, CEO of the Oregon Trucking Association, and it is my distinct pleasure to be here in person today. I did make the drive down from Portland to thank you personally for your recent decision to invest in the Rose Quarter project. This decision was integral to OTA's support of House Bill 2017 8 years ago. And for a variety of reasons, while you've had a lot of conversation about the covers and about the community, we ought to talk about the roadway itself. This section of freeway, we have underinvested in Oregon in recent history in our transportation infrastructure. And I have made it a personal mission of mine to talk to anyone I can about the importance of transportation investments to Oregon's economy. But this particular section of freeway feeds Oregon's economy. The trucks that are on I-5 are there because they are delivering or picking up from Portland-based manufacturers, from the ports. They're bringing in raw materials. They're hauling finished goods. And that section of freeway, as you will notice on the report I brought from you on the 2024 top bottlenecks, has consistently been on that list for years. Sometimes in the top 20, it's dropped a little in recent history. But I think you will also notice that right under position 28, which is the Rose Quarter, is the I-5 bridge. That whole corridor has needed improvement for a number of years, and I'm excited to see both projects starting to move forward, and our industry is certainly excited about that as well. I think it should be noted, just for your information, that I-205 is also important to us, but the simple fact is that freight that moves from Canada to Mexico and isn't stopping for some kind of economic activity in the Portland area typically takes 205 because it is less congested than I-5. So I just wanted to take a moment, come down here, thank you personally for your investment, and I'm happy to and looking forward to working with you on this project as it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And I believe the commission, for all of us, we really have seen the partnerships. You know, I think this is testament to the hard work that's gone into all of this. And I want to thank the commissioners too, because I know they've worked really hard on this project along with the staff. And, you know, it's nice to see things move. I work in government also, and sometimes things are very slow. And this one has seemed to just crawl at times, but we're finally getting the momentum. I think we need to start getting this finished. So keeping my fingers crossed that things keep going in a forward position. All right, that ends our public comment period or time. I'm going to move on to item C on the agenda, which is the director's report and consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Brown, members of the commission, for the record, Chris Strickler, privileged to serve as the director of the Oregon Department of Transportation. I have several items to hit this morning before we move on to your consideration of the consent agenda. But I first wanted to start with an appreciation for how you opened the meeting, Madam Chair. The wildfire impacts that our partner states are experiencing are significant. Our state has sent some element of response and relief their way, but as you well know, they are still working on some very significant impacts, and we're going to continue to read about that in the news for some time. In addition to that, I want to bring attention, and many of you who had the opportunity to travel along I-5 to get here this morning may have seen January's Human Trafficking Awareness Month. We are once again supporting efforts to raise awareness about what I would describe as deplorable actions that need to be addressed and stopped that use our transportation system in a way that is not intended. We work with our partners, including the Department of Homeland Security, Oregon Trucking Association, Truckers Against Trafficking, Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance, and law enforcement to continue to raise awareness of the importance of this issue. There are many who are impacted by this significant issue. We provide educational resources in English and in Spanish, and I want to thank all of our partners for their attention to this and put a plea out to anybody who might see, experience, or acknowledge something that doesn't feel right in this space to report it. If we don't say something, we can't address it, and so it's really important that we put our attention there. Moving on to the next topic, I want to celebrate a mid-December Federal Railroad Administration Award for the Washington State Department of Transportation, and it connects to the work that we've been doing for the Cascadia High-Speed Rail Program. $49.7 million was awarded to advance planning work on the Cascadia High-Speed Rail Program. That is a significant investment from our federal partners. The program is still in its preliminary stages. Funding will continue to support the technical planning effort, but our overlap of our staff working alongside WashDOT staff and engaged both with Amtrak and Cascadia efforts is key to ensuring that the service will be complementary to the existing Amtrak Cascades system. On that note, we're working with a consultant to update a 2014 study regarding extension of high-speed rail from Portland to Eugene as well, and not just stopping in Portland. This update will be available later. I want to take a moment and acknowledge some great work occurring within our regions as well. In Region 5, to improve safety and onboarding of new maintenance employees, our Region 5 safety manager created an orientation task book for more than 20 new TMS team maintenance workers. The task book includes training timelines, orientations, as well as equipment procedures, et cetera. The effort formalizes and fills gaps in training that previously came up on the job, ensuring that all of our maintenance workers are working safe. We've long said that if we aren't safe, we can't keep the public safe, so it's vitally important to the work that we do. So I want to congratulate the Region 5 team. Following along the theme on federal grants, I want to congratulate Region 2 for receiving a $30 million rural surface transportation grant from USDOT to make critical safety and infrastructure improvements along Oregon 126 in Lane County near the communities of Bonita and Elmira. This segment has been repeatedly identified on our safety priority index system as a high crash location with a number of fatalities, and it's important that we invest in that area as safety is our highest priority. I want to extend my appreciation to Senators Merkley, Wyden, as well as Representative Hoyle and the rest of the Oregon federal delegation and our federal partners for helping to make Oregon safer through these investments in Region 2 and in ODOT. In addition to that, just before the holidays in Region 3, we learned that we were receiving a wildlife crossings grant. Senators Merkley and Wyden announced that ODOT will receive $33 million in federal funds to construct the Mariposa Preserve wildlife crossing. We will of course be matching that, but the construction of that, once constructed, will be one of the largest wildlife crossings in the nation. It will provide connections for ecologically diverse wildlife that continue to cross our facilities and provide safety for the traveling public as well. We are extremely grateful to our federal partners for fully funding our grant ask and the coalition of partners that went into supporting that grant ask. It's been a very busy several months for us, as you can see, collecting some of these federal resources. Moving along to DMV. DMV is formally announcing today that the division has launched self-service express kiosks in Fred Meyer stores in 10 cities. That is a huge win for customer service and a huge win for our team at DMV who've been working on this for some time. The kiosks allow customers to renew their vehicle registration in English or Spanish and print new registration documents and license plate stickers immediately after a successful transaction. Half the units accept cash in addition to credit and debit cards, supporting the unbanked in our communities and those who prefer to not use cards online. As the use of these kiosks grow, we hope to continue to expand that as a possibility to provide greater service to Oregonians. The next topic is legislative session. Session begins January 21st, and we have worked closely with the Joint Committee on Transportation, and many of you have worked alongside them as well, to deepen the understanding of transportation's structural revenue issue. And I say transportation because while it is ours as well, communities across the state of Oregon are experiencing the same deficits in transportation reliability going into the future. In December, Governor Kotek released a proposed biennial budget that prioritized funding transportation, and the legislature will now consider the proposal and specific funding mechanisms to go into the future of our transportation system in Oregon. I want to thank our legislators and all of you, not just for the work in the past, but in advance for the difficulty and the energy put into a conversation such as this. It's not lost on us at the agency. We stand ready to answer questions. This is an important investment time for our agency. Throughout session, we will continue to partner with the legislature, Governor Kotek, and other stakeholders to ensure that session ends with sufficient and sustainable funding that we need in order to build the transportation system into the future. I'm getting there. I'm almost done, Madam Chair. Following along the theme of the strategic review that we've been working on for quite some time, you might recall last winter we started down the path of a strategic review that was really aimed at saying, where do we have areas where we need to improve as an agency, and what can we lean on as far as strengths within the agency in order to get there? That calls to question opportunities for improvements at a very technical level, as well as operationalizing some improvements that we've received from that strategic review, but also from one of the steps coming out of that review, which is partnering with our audits group to really have them take a deep dive, independent look at the work that we're doing. You'll see on the consent agenda, when I ask for your consideration there are several topics there, plus one on the regular agenda, all aimed at addressing improvements and constant improvement within the agency. Madam Chair and members of the commission, I will offer that while it's always a good time to continue to evaluate, we certainly know that we have to evaluate performance and accountability on many aspects of the work that we do across the agency. And this was a good time in order to do that. regardless of the outcome of legislative session, that we will be continuing to use those audit mechanisms as a management tool to help us continue to improve, because that's our responsibility as an agency. And so I look forward to that work. You'll hear today some things that have already been put into motion and some validation of some of the remedies that we put in place for areas of findings. And then finally, Madam Chair, we are moving forward, and while I don't have details to report yet, by the next time we get together, we should have a person to report for the Urban Mobility Office, a new leader to fill that role left by Mr. Finn, so that we can continue to advance the work that you've just heard about in public comment. And obviously support the rest of the team that's still here continuing to advance that work as well. So unless there's any questions, I would now then move towards the consent agenda.
Sorry. Commissioner Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Just a comment more than a question, Director. I think in the consent agenda, item number 10 is dealing with audits, as you mentioned, and I think that we should just emphasize that the importance of the material that is in that item shouldn't be minimized because it's in the consent agenda. It is rich with root cause analysis, and it highlights some very important things for the agency to focus on. I think it's one of those where I would encourage all of the leaders inside of ODOT to review this. Budgets are, if you have an auditor that looks at a process and comes away with a clean report, you should find a new auditor, because there's always something that we can improve on. And I really like the attention that we're now putting in terms of these audits. It takes a lot of humility to be able to say, let's take a look at a process, where can we improve? And I think that this is a great start. But you've heard me say many times, budgets are a promise. I think this item, Internal Audit Report 24-03, talks about our struggles with meeting our projects on time and on financial budget. And I think it lays down some very interesting thoughts about where we can improve and how we can improve. And some of it is cultural adjustment. Some of it is probably the way we manage our projects, but there's a lot to learn there. So I just wanted to make sure that we emphasize the importance of this and how rich this information was. And I compliment you on having this audit completed.
Other comments from the commission? I just want to thank the director, because I know that the vice chair isn't here, but both the vice chair and I approached you about looking internally and trying to find these things prior to our session. We felt it's really important to show the people, Oregon, that we take our finances seriously, that we're trying to get a handle on what's going on. And, it's in some ways it's making a promise that we're going to do better. And I think that just conversations amongst with you, Director, has been from the commissioners that we're not going to let this just go away. It's not a piece of paper or a report that we're going to shelve. It's something that we're going to hold not only the department, but you personally accountable to. So thank you.
Yeah, Madam Chair and Commissioner Baker, thank you both for the comments and the understanding of the work. Our team has really dove in and with the understanding that the reason we exist is to serve Oregon. And so at the end of the day, we've got to ask those hard questions of ourselves and the work that we're doing. And while every budget has elements of internal control, management, and externalities, we can't assign all potential impacts to externalities all the time. And so we've done a good job, I think, of really acknowledging where those elements exist. And we have remedies that we're putting in place or already in place to really address those going forward, because trust and accountability is important. So thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, at this point, I would ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda in block items 1 through 13, if you're so willing.
somebody would like to make that motion?
I'd be happy to. Chair Brown, Commissioners, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You have a unanimous vote. It's really great. Thank you. Okay. Moving right along, and we are on time. So it's early yet. All right, our next is item D. It's informational committee updates. And I'll just turn to the commissioners because I know during since December, a lot of us haven't even met with our committees. But if anybody has something they'd like to report out, that now would be the time to give that report. So
I've just got a couple quick ones.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Commissioner Baker.
The NEACT has met since our last meeting, and probably the subject that we all ought to have on the back of our minds as it relates to Eastern Oregon is that Greyhound canceled bus service basically from the Dalles to Boise. So through Eastern Oregon now, members of the transportation communities over there are trying to cobble together a plan to be able to have transportation across Eastern Oregon. There's no longer train service that ended about 25 years ago. So we've got an issue there. The other, which will come up in the future, is our Region 5 Executive Ken Patterson is part of a transportation work group on the effects of the removal of the Lower Snake River dams and the effect that will have on transportation if we're not able to have barge traffic through the Port of Lewiston. So a lot going into trying to figure out what we need to do and how to prepare for that. I'm really happy to report on the Oregon Travel Information Council that the new executive director, Matt Lind, and our new chair, Eliza Canty-Jones, are doing a super job with that agency. They made a really informative and I think well-received presentation to the Joint Committee on Transportation, and they're off to a good solid start. The Region 1 Act is not met, and no update there. The Road User Fee Task Force, we've completed our work and submitted our report. So for now, the rough stuff is on the back burner.
We'll bring you back.
I know.
So don't think you're getting a reprieve from that. Commissioner Chapman. Whoops.
I just have two quick updates. I was able to attend my first Continuing Improvement Advisory Committee meeting. So I wanted to give thanks to all of the volunteer members of that committee who are subject matter experts and are going to be willing to provide their time and expertise to continue the work that you were just discussing with the director to make sure that we are operationalizing the findings of all of our audits and really helping to not just hold the agency accountable, but to provide support for how to actually learn from those lessons. And I also wanted to just acknowledge, I think this is the first meeting that I have attended where all of the public comments were kudos and support for the work the agency is doing, which is very encouraging for all of us as volunteers who spend a significant amount of our time hoping that we're actually advancing positive efforts. But I wanted to give thanks to everyone on the Historic Albina Advisory Board, which I was able to attend just last week. It's really incredible to see the consensus from such a diverse group of stakeholders, from the contractors, from environmental groups, from the Black community, from the truckers, all acknowledging the importance of this project. And it was not that long ago that even within the HAB, there were a lot of very conflicting viewpoints on how to move forward. So I want to thank all of those advisory board members and our partners at ABT again for helping to get everybody on the same page and go after the federal funding and the state funding that we need to actually get it across the finish line.
And I don't know if the act met over in your area.
I'm tracking the two acts that I hope to participate in. They haven't met yet, but I have been taking the last couple of months to try to be diligent about representing local government perspectives here at the OTC, and participating in the Association of Oregon Counties, of course, but also meeting with a number of county commissioners, city managers and city councilors and road department directors, just to hear about their perspectives and hopes and concerns for transportation across the state.
And you're probably finding that the commitment we told you you had to give us was not even close to what is really happening in reality.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who want to talk.
Yes, sir.
And I can't talk to all of them, but I am trying to prioritize and triage.
Well, thank you. And I know when I first came on the commission, there's just so much. And I know both the other commissioners also have experienced this. It's hard. You haven't been with us very long, and thank you for sticking with us and your due diligence on it, because there's a lot that is happening. And right now there just seems to be a lot happening. My act area, the Southwest Act, and also the Rogue Valley Act met, and I wasn't able to attend because I had other meetings that were overlapping everything. And I'm finding that for myself, it's really difficult to get to everything that we want to promise to the different committees. I know with the acts, we've promised that we would try to attend at least one meeting in our regional area. I made a commitment that I would attend them all, and now I'm finding that I can't. And I know today Vice Chair isn't here, but also the work groups have been working, the legislative work groups with the subcommittee. And today the active transportation is meeting. And so I wasn't even able to attend that meeting. And they're wrapping up their work and making their recommendation to the Joint Transportation Committee. So there is a lot of moving parts right now. I really I'm thankful that everybody does want to be involved with us and talk to us and tell us what the needs are across the state. I'm really appreciative that we were able to tour this summer and see a lot of the projects, along with what the OTC was able to do with our meetings across the state. And it just really, what it does is I think it makes us have a better appreciation that transportation is broad, but in the end, it's the same. Doesn't matter what community you live in. We're finding that the needs and the challenges that we're facing with funding, it's across the state. So as we move forward, I know that the ACT chairs will be meeting again this spring, not too far away. We'll be working at the legislative level, and I know that the staff are going to this is probably the last time we're going to see them look somewhat rested. Everybody's going to start taking on a haggard look, but I think that we have a big push in front of us, but we're primed to do that. So thank you for your work, and we'll be having more conversations because we are going to divvy up some more work to everybody. We're just going to have to do that. I know with the tolling, they'll be meeting in the very near future. I know that Vice Chair and I met with the Vice Chair and the Chair of the Washington Commission to talk about some of the hiccups that we're having in the conversation with tolling. And we'll be moving forward with that. So I know our entire commission will be meeting with Washington in this spring, later on this spring. I think it's late spring, and then again in the fall to make those decisions on the I-5. So with that said, I think that's the end of our reports, unless there's anything else anybody wants to add. All right. Let's see how we're doing. We are a little ahead. Let's stay that way. So now we're going to go to item E, the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program update.
Madam Chair, for the record, I'm Travis Brower, Assistant Director for Revenue Finance Compliance, and I'll turn to my colleague, Mr. Maybe, and he's going to kick us off.
Great. Good morning, Chair Brown, members of the commission, Ray Mabey, Interstate Bridge Replacement Program Assistant Administrator. Pleasure to be here today to give you a very brief program update and then turn it over to Assistant Director Brower to give you an update on the tolling for the program. Next slide, please. Oh, we got the control here, sorry. Thanks. So I'd like to start off with an announcement that we just recently got this week. The program partners are continuing to seek additional funding, and the City of Vancouver was recently awarded a $30 million US DOT grant for reconnecting communities. A co-applicant was Washington DOT. And this grant is targeted for the community connector, which is somewhat of a lid on I-5 in Vancouver, just south of Evergreen Street. That is the same place as the terminus of light rail and a transit hub between light rail and rapid bus transit from C-Tran. So it's an important element of the program, connecting and reconnecting the east and west sides of Vancouver, and we're very excited to see this grant come in. Also, the program has recently celebrated a significant milestone in the publishing of the draft supplemental environmental impact statement and the conclusion of its public comment period. That ended in November after a 60-day open public comment period. At the same time, we did have a Section 106 historical comment, Section 106 public comment period that overlapped. These could be combined, but our federal partners want to make sure we had separate opportunities to comment on those two different documents. Leading up to that, we knew we really wanted to have a broad array of input and engagement from the community and the public. And so we conducted some extensive engagement around getting ready for that, helping people with in advance of the publication with community briefings about what the document would look like and how we would be holding various hearings to provide opportunities for comment and even opportunities for help them understand how to comment on a document meaningfully so that they make the most impact with their comments. And so you can see the broad array of engagement that we did leading up to and then during that. And we even went as far as to put a billboard sign up about the public comment period. I think that's maybe the first time either DOT has done that. And we really liked our catchphrase that this bridge is so 1917. And I think that was effective because if I go to the next slide, we did receive over 3,600 entries for comments, and each entry could have many different comments in it. Total count is at this point exceeding 10,000. That is an extensive engagement from our community and the public, and we are working through each one of those to categorize and triage them. We're really looking for those comments initially that could have a need for additional studies or work on the MLPA that may take additional time and review with our federal partners so that we can understand how that potentially impacts schedule. But we're going to attack those first, understand those impacts on that, and then continue through the remainder of the comments. We'll have an understanding of those, the potential impact of those comments in about 3 to 4 weeks. But at this point, we are holding schedule to have the final environmental impact statement later this year, followed by the record decision about 30 days later. So we're targeting the fall for that at this point. One important thing to note is that each of those comments, those 10,000 comments, will be in the final supplemental environmental impact statement, along with our responses. We have to respond to each one of those comments, and those will also be published in that document. And so that is the team doing that work, did a lot of work leading up to the draft, and now are working hard on the responses. Now, it's just not the responses that are important, but how that impacts the work we're doing. And so that will, those comments will help shape the alternative that we take into the final. And we'll be working with our program partners to talk about the results of those comments, their impacts, and how we need to respond to those, and how they potentially impact the shape of the program moving forward. Once we have that record of decision, that is really the starting point from the federal partners, giving our clearance for final design, right-of-way acquisition, and moving into construction. So that is a very important phase for the program, but just even that draft that we just published is a significant milestone, and happy to be moving past that towards the final. This is our program schedule. We are at the beginning of 2025. You can see that we are nearing the end of environmental phase, leading into the end of 2025. We're beginning the permitting work with our various partner agencies to get ready for construction, as well as continuing to support the environmental work with design effort in response to those comments. We're getting ready for construction by starting to draft RFQ and RFPs for construction contracts. We're looking at the main river crossing initially to be coming out soon after the record of decision. So getting that information out soon to maintain momentum is key to us. We are continuing, as we just saw with the Reconnecting Communities grant, continue to seek additional funding along the way. We cannot do this without our community. And so ongoing community engagement and consultation with our tribes is also a key piece of our path forward. And I think my last slide is a discussion of where we are with our federal grants. Just to recap, we've got 3 large grants, 2 of that have been awarded. The mega grant from USDOT, a $600 mega grant, and then a $1.5 billion federal highway bridge investment program grant. And I'm pleased to say that we have just finalized the mega grant this morning, and we'll be signing that with USDOT and Federal Highway Administration. It just cleared the OST this morning. So we will be executing that grant with our federal partners. We're working with the Federal Highway Administration on the Bridge Investment Program grant and hope to soon execute that one as well, the grant agreement. And then that'll allow us to start to access those funds and program them. The FTA capital improvement grant, that's really targeted towards the light rail portion of the program, transit, is a stepped and very sequenced and rigorous process to ensure delivery, especially for that program. And we don't really expect that grant or full funding grant agreement until 2028, but there are steps along the way where we continue to work with Federal Transit Administration along that. So we are in project development now. I hope to move out of project development at the end of this year into engineering, another phase before we move into that final grant agreement phase. But with that brief update, I'll turn it over to Assistant Director Brower.
Thank you, Ray. I'm going to focus on tolling, another one of the major funding sources, slated for about $1.24 billion in total funding. You have been engaged deeply in this and have created a bi-state toll subcommittee with Washington, on which Commissioner Chapman and Vice Chair Beyer serve. And so we are doing in-depth work to continue on this. As you'll recall, back in 2023, we finalized the level 2 traffic and revenue analysis, which has been shared. And we have been working with the bi-state toll subcommittee on the level 3 traffic and revenue analysis study, the so-called investment grade traffic and revenue analysis that is literally the one that we bring to the bank. Back on October 1st, you had the bi-state meeting where you agreed on the various scenarios that would be put forward for analysis, and that work is ongoing. The next steps are really to develop the formal rate setting process that will be used by the 2 states. That is something that the Bi-State Toll Subcommittee is going to dig into beginning in its next meeting. That is a process. Obviously, Washington has a process they have used for rate setting, but this will be our first bi-state toll rate setting in many, many years. And so that will be a somewhat different process that we're going to be developing that will involve engagement with local community partners and many of the folks who've been engaged that Ray talked about throughout that process of developing the project. And then after that is complete, we'll go through the formal rate setting process and you will jointly adopt the toll rates and then begin pre-completion tolling as early as 2026. All that, of course, is contingent on the construction schedule for the bridge. As we talk about pre-completion tolling, you may hear people call it pre-construction tolling. That is not the case. We will not begin tolling on the bridge prior to construction. So you will see actual construction activity going on. So the Bi-State Toll Subcommittee met again in November based on the conversation that you had with the Washington State jointly on October 1st to discuss potential tribal tolling discounts or exemptions on the I-5 bridge. And the approach that they agreed to analyze in the level 3 traffic and revenue analysis was to assess the revenue and cost of operations implications of both a 50% discount, similar to what we looked at for the low-income toll program, and a full exemption for a number of tribes. They're looking at two different scenarios. One is a more limited scenario that would include the 10 tribes who are federally recognized and have an identified connection to the IBR program area and that are consulting with the IBR program. As Ray mentioned, there is a consultation process with those 10 tribes that have that identified connection to the program area. There is also going to be a larger analysis statewide of including all federally recognized tribes with the connection to either Oregon or Washington. That was the approach that we used with the commission that you agreed to for the tribal exemption that we were exploring for Oregon-only toll projects. So we'll be looking at both of those to better understand that. The Bi-State Toll Subcommittee unanimously voted to support that analysis as a part of the level 3 toll traffic and revenue study that we'll be getting back later this year. In terms of toll administration, you'll recall that when we paused the toll program, we're no longer standing up that office in Oregon. So the toll collection is shifted over to the Washington State Department of Transportation Toll Division, which already has 5 toll facilities in operations. So we are working with them, though, because there is still significant work that has to be done as part of the project. And then even in our headquarters to implement tolling, things like the data transmission protocols to make sure that we are able to enforce those Washington tolls through the DMV and do that work as well. So we have updated the interagency MOU. The memorandum of understanding previously had ODOT as the lead toll agency. That's now been shifted over to WashDOT, and that has been effectuated in that memorandum of understanding that is put in place between the two states. So that gives you a sense of some of the policy work we're doing on tolling, as well as the administrative work. And with that, we would welcome any questions or feedback on either tolling or the larger issues around the project.
Questions from the commission? I mean, I think we've all been tracking and following, so I'm not sure that we have any questions for you. None? You get off easy today.
Great, thank you. Well, we're happy to make up a little bit of time.
All right. Well, thank you. And again, thank you for the work on this. I know that you've been really active on this, and I've been part of some of those meetings. So,
okay.
Right. At this point, we are ahead. It's 10:04. We have a break next. Do we want to take the break?
I think you have one more item,
no.
Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry. I see that now. And no, I don't want to talk to you now. I want a break.
Okay, Sean, you get to get the presentation.
I'm just
kidding.
Sorry, I apologize. Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, for the record, again, Travis Brower, Assistant Director for Revenue, Finance, Compliance, and I'll let Sean introduce himself as well.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Sean Eklund, the IBR tolling manager. Good morning.
Right. Well, thank you for hearing us today. We are here at the culmination of a long process of developing toll rules. You approved those rules back in December after more than a year of conversation about them. Of course, during that time, the rules morphed and shrunk considerably so that they were focused solely on the things we needed to do in order to be able to designate tollways and do the rate setting process for the Interstate Bridge in conjunction with Washington State. So the action today that we're asking for you is to approve an application by the Interstate Bridge Replacement Project to be named as a tollway project and that section of highway to be designated as a tollway. Under ORS 383.015, that is an action that is within the purview of the Oregon Transportation Commission. In order to do that, there are a number of requirements that must be met that are laid out in statute, as well as provisions of two of those sections of rules that you approved last month that relate to, one section relates to all tollway projects and one is specific to projects on interstate bridges. So your action today, if you should choose to approve this proposal, would bring us up in alignment with Washington, which already designated the Interstate Bridge through the legislative process as an eligible toll facility in 2023. So as I noted, there are a number of requirements in law. And so I'm going to walk through just a few of these. You'll notice in your packet, there is a very lengthy tollway project application that the project completed. We took that application that was completed by the project and had an internal review process within ODOT. Myself and a number of other individuals, including those who had worked on the rule and had been engaged in the tollway or toll program, reviewed that project to make sure that it addressed all of the considerations and requirements that are in the law and the rules. And we have judged that it does. We'll cover that. So there are a large number of requirements. Just as calling out a few, you're required to consider the opinions of local governments and their interests, consider the probable impact on the state economy and local environmental, aesthetic, and economic conditions, have to consider the extent to which non-state funding is available for the project, as well as the likelihood that tolls will provide sufficient revenue to finance costs. You're required to look at the effects on community and local street traffic and coordination with other transportation services and investments in order to address congestion. There are requirements for incorporating equity and, of course, for coordination with the state of Washington, as it would be bad form for us to toll a bridge that was jointly owned and operated. So when we reviewed this application with the review team, we determined that the application did meet all the requirements in the administrative rules and the Oregon revised statute, and specific findings that we're required to present, that the revenues generated by the proposed toll will be sufficient for the bridge operation expenses and a portion of the cost of construction, maintenance, and repair. As you saw from Mr. Maybe's slide earlier, tolls will not pay for the entirety of this program, and they've never been desired to do that. However, we also found that the program's importance to the welfare and economy of the state justifies the use of public funding and a portion to cover a portion of the program's construction, repair, and maintenance. As we heard from Ms. Jarvis earlier today, this is one of the most important truck bottlenecks in the entire nation, and therefore we believe it is reasonable as part of this tollway application to approve that there is a justification for other public funding coming into play. So with that, our requested action, you'll see in your packet, there's a draft resolution that would authorize the IBR tollway or IBR program as a tollway project and the facility as a tollway. We would ask you to approve that resolution. That will allow the IBR program to proceed with planning and implementation of pre-completion tolling and post-completion tolling when we have the new bridge in place. That will allow the Bi-State Toll Subcommittee to continue its work on the rate setting process and for us to get to approval of rates. I will pause and also note that Commissioner Chapman may have any comments about this process given her role on the Bi-State Toll Subcommittee, but also that Sean, I think, may have a few words about some of the other steps that will come after this approval as well.
Thank you, Travis. I did have a couple comments. One is really just thanks to our partners in Washington for their willingness to take on a much larger role in this than we had initially anticipated. And also recognizing how much more challenging it's going to be, as we've talked about, to implement a toll program on IBR that has a ripple effect for all of the other assets in Washington that are currently tolled in the Puget Sound. So if we implement a low income tolling program for this bridge, which is a priority for us in Oregon, they have committed to supporting that, but that means that they may have to roll out the same program, or, you know, there's going to be a challenging communication campaign, I guess, that would have to happen across Washington so people understand that there are going to be different tolling programs. So it's a lot more complicated on their end, and that isn't lost on us. We appreciate their leadership and their partnership, but it has been a surprisingly smooth process, and it's great to go into those meetings, which could be very contentious, and to just really have true partners on the other side of the bridge. So I want to give my thanks to our co-commissioners up there and to all of the staff that have provided really solid data to help us make informed decisions.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Commissioner Chapman. Excellent. I think we're in good shape as far as our next steps for the tolling program is our coordination with the Federal Highway Administration. So now that we'll be in alignment for an approved tollway with both Oregon and Washington, we'll begin that coordination right away. And a best practice is typically to develop a memorandum of understanding with FHWA, which we'll be doing this year. In addition to that coordination with FHWA and our other agency partners, we'll continue engagement with the community. Part of that will be through our stated preference survey, which we begin next month as part of our level 3 toll revenue analysis. But essentially, we'll be engaging with both drivers of passenger vehicles and commercial vehicles. Those engagements will be in person and online. We'll collect that data through March and February and March of this year. The data analysis should be done by June, and that will all feed into our overall level 3 analysis for the investment grade study, basically. So overall on track, and we really appreciate your consideration for the tollway application, because this just puts us in line to continue that work.
And with that, we request your approval of the tollway project application, and through the approval of the resolution, I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
So with that said, I'll accept a motion for agenda item F.
Chair Brown, I move to authorize the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, also known as the IBR, as a tollway project and the facility as a tollway.
Do we have a second? Yes, I have a second.
I'll
Commissioner
second
Chang.
that.
Okay, thank you. With that said, I'll open up for discussion, and then at the end of the discussion, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to have staff do a roll call vote on this. So any discussion that we want to add to this?
Yeah, I did have one question. What kind of assumptions do you use for inflation when you're determining whether the revenue is going to be sufficient at a future point in time to cover construction operation costs?
Yeah, Commissioner Chang, excellent question. That is something that is one of the factors that's addressed in the level 3 traffic and revenue analysis, that the toll rates have an assumed rate of inflation. And I believe, I'll follow up with this looking at that, but I believe it's something like 2.5% per year in several of the scenarios. And then there is one scenario that has inflation applied every 2 years at a slightly higher rate, but lower rate on an annualized basis. So we would build in that assumption that toll rates would escalate over time so that you can keep up with inflation and make sure you're still able to pay for the cost of operating a toll system, the maintenance of the facility, and meet your financing requirements.
And if inflation is higher than forecasted, do the toll rates escalate accordingly?
Commissioner Chang, excellent question. That really is going to be in the purview of the commissions. We cannot simply automatically inflate the tolls by inflation, by the CPI or some other measure. It has to be an act of rulemaking by the commissions to jointly approve those toll rates. But we would ask for your consideration throughout this process that be assumed that you will adjust the toll rates for inflation, and that the that would be the standard process on a, say, annual or every 2-year basis. It still will require an affirmative act of the commissions in order to do that. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
If I could just add one note, we're clearly not at this point yet, but as you look at financing that uses tolls as a backend in order to finance projects, typically when you reach the point of selling toll bonds, there are covenants that are built into that that require adjustments. And so you would be forced to meet in order to have that.
Any other questions? No?
Madam Chair, if I may note, we will take your, the motion that was raised as approval of the resolution as well, since there's specific language in that resolution with the findings,
Okay.
if that is appropriate.
Yes. All right, I need staff to do a roll call.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I think you kept us still on way ahead of time, so thank you. All right, with that said, we are going to take a 10-minute break. And then we'll be back for item G. We're ready? Okay, great. We're back from our break. Sorry, it took us a few extra moments. And now we're going to item, where are we now? G. Big decision.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Travis Brower, ODOT's Assistant Director for Revenue Finance Compliance. Most of the presentation today, Ms. Channel is going to take, but I'm going to open up just with a little bit of a reminder and context. Last month at your December meeting, you approved an updated urban mobility strategy finance plan. And at that point, you made the decision to dedicate an additional $250 million in urban mobility strategy funds from the HB 2017 $30 million annual allocation to the Rose Quarter project so that it can go to construction this year and begin building the southbound auxiliary lane and the northbound auxiliary lane, some other work that Megan will walk you through, including expanding on the highway cover. So in a sense, you have already made the difficult decision at the December meeting to move forward with the project. And what we're here today really is just to effectuate the decision you have already made with a STIP amendment that would transfer $250 million into the Rose Quarter project so that Ms. Channel can get her contractor working and get that project under construction this summer. So I will turn it over to Megan to walk you through the details.
Great. Thank you, Travis and Chair and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Megan Channel. I'm the Rose Quarter Project Director. So I will be walking through, if I have the ability to change the slide, I'll be walking through the details of the STIP amendment. And as those slides catch up, I will continue on. I just wanted to frame the project in full. So I'm going to try one more time here. There we go. So wanted to frame the project in full, just to set the context for the full and complete project that we continue to be committed towards delivering, recognizing that the STIP amendment that's in front of you today would be for the start of construction for a portion of the project, again, in the spirit and goal of ultimately completing this project in full. So the project includes 6 key scope areas. One is the highway cover. It's about a quarter mile of the highway cover and extends from south of Weidler to the north of Flint, reconnects the local streets, and more importantly, creates new community space on top for future development opportunities. That facilitates the Hancock crossing or a new roadway connection over the highway cover as well. There's a number of multimodal street improvements integrated as part of the project, as well as a separated bicycle and pedestrian bridge to the south of the highway cover area. And the last 2 items relate to the I-5 main line with the auxiliary lane. So 1 new auxiliary lane in the northbound and southbound direction on I-5 between 84 and I-405, coupled with the relocation of the southbound off-ramp. So I'm bringing this next slide in front of you just as a reminder, and this should look familiar to you, as what was in the Urban Mobility Strategy Finance Plan presentation last month. And this really frames out that with the approval of the additional $250 million, this brings us to about $850 million in funding for the project. And this covers all of the planning and environmental and design work that has been done to date over the past decade, as well as the funding needed for future design and construction of the components that you see on the screen here. So I will break these components down into the specific phases of work for which would be funded by the STIP amendment. So the first is phase 1A. And this is focused on the construction that will start this year. So this is the 2025 construction package. It focuses on stormwater facilities in the north end of the project at the I-405 interchange, as well as bridge preservation work in the south end of the project area near the I-84 interchange. And these were selected for a number of reasons. A, they're shovel ready and the components that were design ready to be able to go into construction. But B, we were also looking at components of work that would maximize and really put our values into action around maximizing opportunities for disadvantaged business enterprises. We will be leveraging the project's what we call mini CMGC program, which is where a DBE has the opportunity to serve as a prime for subcomponents of the project under the mentorship and sort of technical assistance of our joint venture So it's an opportunity to build that workforce capacity, not only for future phases of Rose Quarter, but future phases of work in our region. This getting to work, I know, as you mentioned in your comments last month with the Urban Mobility Strategy Finance Plan, this reduces the impact of inflation. It puts our dollars to work now. This work would take about 2 years. So it would start in summer of this year and extend through the end of 2026. The second phase of work, which we call phase 1, that would be, again, the remaining component of the STIP amendment, really leverages the Reconnecting Community grant dollars that we received from the federal government and combining work that would be done with building the first portion of the highway cover. So on this graphic, you can see the central part in purple. That is the area that would be funded with the Reconnecting Communities grant. And with the approved STIP amendment, we would be implementing the elements identified in orange. So we would be able to expand the amount of highway cover that we can build as part of this package, and also begin to implement safety and operational improvements on the I-5 main line. And that includes completing the full southbound auxiliary lane for the project. So from Interstate 84 from Interstate 405 to the 84 exit, and then the Morrison Bridge exit just south of 84. It will also provide an extension of the existing auxiliary lane in the northbound direction to provide a portion of those initial improvements for the northbound main line. Again, these components were added not only to be able to deliver more of the reconnecting components and the needed safety and operational improvements, but really in light of making sure that we were enhancing constructability and reducing impact to the traveling public as we're going through construction. So this phase 1 would begin in 2027, so right on the heels of phase 1A and carry through a few years. So the requested action in front of you today formally, and despite this not saying questions, I want to acknowledge that I'm happy to answer questions prior to your action. But the requested action is for the commission to approve amending the 2024 to 2027 STIP with an increase of $250 million in House Bill 2017 Urban Mobility Strategy funds. And the breakdown of that would be to increase funding by $60 million for phase 1A, or formerly known as key number 23682, to increase by the order of $177.5 million for phase 1, formerly known as key number 23672, and also increase on the order of $12.5 million for preliminary engineering, right-of-way, and utility relocation funding that's needed to support the construction readiness of these 2 phases. So that concludes my presentation, and happy to answer any questions you may have as you consider the action.
Any questions? Do we have any questions from the commissioners? If not, I will accept a motion.
I do have one question.
Okay.
Yeah. We heard this morning in testimony that the women's Final Four is going to be in the Rose Quarter in 2030. Yeah. What might this project look like in 2030? Are we going to be in a place where we're really showcasing what we've been able to accomplish in the Rose Quarter to the world?
Yeah, well, we will be under construction, and that is something that we've been coordinating with our partners at RIP City Management and from others that you've heard. And so I think that's a point of continued coordination for us as we begin to outline the specifics of the construction schedule, just making sure that we're showcasing the best that we possibly can during that time, given the national attention that we'll be receiving.
Probably not a good time. Anytime there's construction and backup of traffic.
Yeah.
All right, great question. All right, so I'm looking for a motion for agenda item G.
Chair Brown, I move to amend the 2024-2027 statewide transportation improvement program to increase the funding in the amount of $250 million for the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project from $6 million in 23, $391,997 to $873,391,997 for the 3 projects related to the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project as described in the request. This new funding of $250 million is from House Bill 217 Urban Mobility Strategy Funds as directed by the OTC at its December 4, 2024 meeting.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Good luck.
There you go.
Second.
All right, thank you. These microphones sometimes give us a little bit of trouble. So is there any other discussion on this? I mean, I think we covered it all in December, this kind of housekeeping. If there's no further discussion, I'll ask staff to do a roll call, please.
Commissioner King?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Yes.
Chair Brown?
Chair votes yes. All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
On we go. Now we're at item number H. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Tova Peltz, and I'm a statewide capital program engineer. And I'm here to talk about request the cancellation of the Oregon 120 Columbia Slough Bridge project from the STIP. Let's see. This request is a follow-up to decisions made by the commission in December concerning the funding of the Abernathy Bridge retrofit project. At that time, we identified that there would be bonding would be used for that project, and we recognized the need to identify funds to pay for debt service on that bonding. For the 24-27 STIP, we recognized that we would need to cancel one project in the STIP cycle to pay for the most immediate debt service, and the Columbia Slough Bridge replacement was project identified. We shared this project as a possibility for cancellation earlier in 2024 as we were talking about potential project cancellations tied to the funding plan for UMO and Abernathy project. So with this action, we would cancel the preliminary engineering and right-of-way phases of this project, a total of $17 million. And then that would go back to the bridge program, and then additionally about $25 million that's sitting in the bridge program to be allocated in the future to construction would continue to be set aside and used for that debt service. Beyond the 24-27 STIP, debt service will be allocated off the top of the bridge program, so additional project cancellations won't be necessary. So in this case, the request is to cancel the design and right-of-way phases of the project, as I said, totaling $17 million. The planning work that is underway will continue and then will be wrapped up. And then, as I said, that money will be held in the bridge program to pay for debt service. The cancellation of this project means that we won't be able to complete a jurisdictional transfer that we started in 2008 with the city of Portland. The Swift Highway, which is called North Portland Boulevard now, was jurisdictionally transferred to the city of Portland in 2008. And there was an agreement made at that time that we would complete jurisdictional transfer of the bridge itself once we completed replacement of that bridge. So we have been maintaining that bridge since, we've been maintaining that bridge since it was constructed, and we've continued to maintain it since the transfer in 2008. We were looking forward to the opportunity to replace it and complete the transfer and pass this legacy bridge to the city of Portland. And it's disappointing that we won't be able to do that at this time. This cancellation will delay that, the completion of that transfer. I realized as I was flipping through these slides this morning that the 5th slide should be the action, and there is no action slide here. So I think that we're going to have to go back to the letter, which calls out the action. But with this cancellation, we would return $17 million to the State Bridge Program. And so I asked the commission to support that action and cancel the PE and right-of-way phases of this project.
Thank you. So discussion on this, any questions for Ms. Peltz? I think that I just want to make a comment, which is, this is the struggle that this commission is really having. You know, as we try to move forward and try to meet the needs across Oregon and figure out how to finish off these projects that we have identified and committed to, it means people have to give things up. And it's frustrating to me. It really is. And I know it's frustrating to all the commissioners sitting here. With this said, we know that this wasn't a high priority bridge replacement, that there was an opportunity of funding that came forward and was placed on this. And so now we're just gonna have to delay it. Doesn't mean it's completely canceled forever.
That's
but
correct.
We're gonna have to work towards finding replacement funding for this. So to the city of Portland, we will continue maintaining the bridge so that we can get this transfer done. With that said, I'm looking for a motion for agenda item H.
Chair Brown, I move to amend the 2024-2027 statewide transportation improvement program, also known as the STIP, to cancel the preliminary engineering and right-of-way phases of OR 120, the Columbia Slough Bridge Portland project.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Chang. I always look at you first. Give me a second, please. Thank you. All right, any more discussion? If not, I will look to staff for a roll call.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman?
Yes.
Chair Brown?
Yes, you have your motion. Thank you very much. All right. Move on, and Travis comes back along with Marlene.
All right, Madam Chair, I'm Travis Brower, as Assistant Director for Revenue Finance Compliance. I'll let Marlene introduce herself as well.
Great. Marlene Hartinger, Chief Auditor for the department.
So I'm going to give some brief context for how we got here, and then this is really Marlene's audit to explain, and then I will talk about what we're doing in order to implement the findings of the audit and shore up our financial practices. You may recall that early last year, we found a significant error in the budget for project delivery. To simplify a really complex issue, we significantly overestimated the amount of federal revenue through reimbursement that we would expect to receive this biennium for projects in the STIP. That error had two primary causes. So first, when we built the STIP, we front-loaded projects in the first couple of years. The program's probably too many projects in the first 2 years that coincided with this budget period. To allow us to front load, we used a tool called advanced construction that allows states to spend state dollars now with the option to convert those expenditures into federal reimbursements at some point in the future. However, our highway cash flow model that takes projects in the STIP and translates them into actual expenditures in the budget mistranslated those projects that used advanced construction into immediate federal reimbursements for all projects, even though some of them would have federal reimbursements come in over a number of years as we converted those advanced construction obligations. And some of them were programmed as advanced construction just to allow us the opportunity to convert them, but were not necessarily intended to do so. We had more projects set aside as advanced construction to allow us that flexibility than we actually had federal dollars available. So as a result of this error, we had more money showing in the budget coming from the federal government that was actually going to appear. We feared at the time, a year ago, that if we didn't take immediate action, that we could end up overspending our resources. That turned out not to probably be as real of a risk as we worried about, and I'll walk you through that. We disclosed that error publicly. We had that conversation with you and then brought to you a STIP adjustment in May that pushed some of those projects in 24 and 25 out so that we would smooth that spending over the 4-year period. And that certainly helped us. We also asked the Strategic Review Committee that Director Strickler put together to take a look at our budgeting practices to see whether the steps we were putting into place would address that. They said, looks like you've got some good stuff in place that will help in the future, but you should do an audit. And that's where we brought in the superstar team of Marlene's auditors to take on this work. So with that, I'll turn it to her to walk through the findings.
Great. Thank you, Travis. Chair Brown, members of the commission, as Travis noted, we conducted this audit in response to the strategic review. And I should say next slide. Thank you. So you'll see on the slide, we had 3 questions that the audit set out to answer. The first was whether ODOT has been using reasonable revenue assumptions in its forecasts. The second was, has the identified budget error been corrected? And then third was whether the House Bill 2017 funding has been used in alignment with statute. Next slide. So overall, though, I'd like to start out with, we found that the department has taken actions to help address the budget errors for the current biennium. We also found that additional actions are needed to prevent future errors from occurring. So the audit had several findings. First was that a lack of reconciliation for the 23-25 agency budget and the STIP, that was not done to ensure there was adequate budget to support delivery of the STIP. The second finding we had was an over-reliance, as Travis acknowledged the cash flow model, that there was an over-reliance on that model to develop the budget. The cash flow model was limited in its ability to accurately forecast future expenditures. And as a result, its miscalculations overinflated federal revenue by about $1.1 billion for the agency's budget in the current biennium. And then lastly, for the House Bill 2017 funding portion, we had some difficulty fully verifying that the revenue was used as specified in statute. We found that House Bill 2017 funds were combined with other agency funds in the agency's accounting records, and it made it difficult to verify where the revenue was allocated. We were able to verify about 85% of the dedicated funding being allocated in the STIP. And then for the remainder, even though we could not tie that to the STIP, agency staff were able to point to other state funds that could fill that gap. And so, as you can see on this current slide, we made several recommendations to improve the process. First is reconciling actual House Bill 2017 funds with program allocations. Another was creating a separate fund account for those House Bill 2017 funds. And then there were recommendations around aligning the budget and the STIP with the state highway fund revenue commitments. And then the overarching of keeping data current and documented, and then also exploring alternatives to the cash flow model. And then a point of acknowledgement is to Travis and his team. They were very responsive to the audit in making findings as we were going along to resolve those findings and taking additional corrective actions. So even before the ink was dry on the audit report, Travis and his team were responsive in taking corrective actions. And so I'll turn back over to you, Travis, to talk about those actions.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank Marlene's team as well. We view any audit as an opportunity to find issues within the agency and make improvements. So we are taking this as an opportunity to improve upon our financial management and the way we do our budgeting practices. As Marlene mentioned, the audit found that one of our key issues that was when we started on implementation on HB 2017, way back in the summer of 2017, going back actually to the commission meeting in August, we started the work of allocating the funding in the STIP, but what our fundamental error was not separating those HB 2017s into a separate account, a separate fund within our accounting system. That was done out of a desire to simplify financial management of projects so that they didn't have to charge to multiple locations. But as a result, we could not effectively and easily track exactly where each dollar of HB 2017 went. Though, as Marlene noted, we were able to identify expenditures of HB 2017 funds for eligible activities for all of the dollars that were provided. But it did take some effort because we couldn't just simply pull a report from that fund. So next slide, please. One thing I really want to note, I'm going to talk to you both about the specific findings and the management response, but also just our larger financial management as an agency, because this is really a part of an overall effort to improve our overall financial management. That decision not to separate those funds was made at a time when I would argue we did not have as strong a financial organization structure or leadership within the agency. At the time, the 5 different financial oriented groups were spread across 3 different divisions, and there wasn't a strong decision-making structure that ensured those financial decisions were made effectively and on sound basis. That structure had grown up over time, but it was not one we would have created. And there was really no financial leader of the agency. So that decision to not place the HB 2017 dollars into a separate account was not made by the financial leaders of the agency. It was really made elsewhere by agency leadership. So next slide, please. When Chris became director, one of the first things he did was to reorganize ODOT. And I think one of the most important decisions he made was to create a finance and budget division that brought these key financial parts of the agency together. You can see we have brought those 5 groups that were previously there have now been consolidated into 4 and all report to a finance and budget division administrator. Today, that is Daniel Porter. I played that role as well as assistant director for revenue finance compliance until this summer. So we have a single person who is responsible and accountable for this work today. Now, I will note that organizational structure did not prevent us from making this budget error that was identified last year, but it did help us. We identified it much faster than we might have had those portions of the agency still been spread out. And we were able to work more effectively under that single leadership structure to address that and able to spring into action really quickly. And I hope that, had this been in place in 2017, perhaps we would have made a different decision about tracking funds. Clearly, if there's a legislative funding package coming out of 2025, we will create an accounting fund structure that separates the accounts in whatever way the legislature directs us to spend those funds, as we did in past funding packages, and those are still in place. And so, my hope is that this funding or financial reporting structure will really help us avoid errors in the future and address these issues from occurring in the future. Next slide, please. So as Marlene noted, we started taking steps to address the error before the audit happened, and even before we came to you last May. So we took some immediate steps. So for example, one of the key findings was that it was the cash flow model's translation from obligations in the STIP to spending in the budget that caused that over budgeting. And so for the 25-27 budget, we basically threw out the cash flow model for developing the Delivery and Operations Division budget and used historic actual federal funding reimbursements rather than the cash flow model. We also set in motion a plan to start tracking HB 2017 funds in a separate account starting in the 25-27 budget. So we'll be doing that beginning on July 1 with the new fiscal year and biennium. We also created a new cash model, cash allocation model to clearly divide revenue. The model we had been using was old, and so it needed to be updated. This was a good opportunity to do that. Because the way we managed the advanced construction authorizations was part of the challenges, we have taken a much more active role in monitoring those balances and conversions of those funds so that we don't get into this place in the future. And of course, then we came to you last May to ask you to adjust the STIP to push projects out to avoid that potential of overspending and spread the STIP funding more clearly or more evenly across the STIP. And then we've been monitoring our 23-25 budget very closely. Given that potential for overspending, we've been monitoring the expenditures against the budget in the project delivery and local government budget areas, which are the 2 that were affected by the budget error. So if you can go to the next slide. As this chart shows, we are significantly underspending our overestimated budget for these 2 areas. That is in part because you adjusted the STIP and pushed some projects out. But it's also because as we've looked at this and understood the budget area in more depth, it turns out that the cash flow model not only overestimated the revenue we would get from the federal government, also actually overestimated our expenditures. So in that sense, we are actually in alignment between expenditures and revenue because of the systematic overestimation on both sides of that. So we do not believe that we have any significant risk of overspending in these budget areas. Next slide, please. So Marlene laid out the audit findings and recommendations. And so we have a robust management review or management response that you can see in the audit. We committed that beginning in July, as I noted, we will begin creating specific fund details for the HB 2017 funds to be able to track those expenditures clearly. We are going to continue building future project delivery budgets based on historic actual federal reimbursements rather than that cash flow model, just as we did for the 25-27 biennium. We are going to explore options to replace the cash flow model that has proven so problematic. It is an old 1990s software system that runs on the mainframe. It's a little bit of a black box. The people who developed it are long gone, and we've tried to replace it and run into some challenges. This will take some time and money, so it will not be an immediate impact. But at the very least, we're sort of isolating the cash flow model, using it for what it's still appropriate, and not using it for the budget development. We are going to be going forward reconciling the actual funding that comes in from HB 2017 with the projections that we make in advance in the STIP. You'll recall last year when you, actually, sorry, in 2023, when you did the STIP allocation for 2730, we brought you estimated HB 2017 funds that were included in that. So we had to make that estimation of STIP of HB 2017 funds available in the STIP in 2023 for spending all the way through 2030. What we'll be doing is reconciling that to make sure that the numbers we gave you in advance of the STIP actually match how much was allocated and expended in the STIP. And we'll be regularly reporting on that. And then we're going to be working with Delivery and Operations Division to make sure we keep bid dates current. That is something that is important in the cash flow model, because if there is not a good bid date, then it can't even make educated assumptions about when a project is going to expend its resources. So as you can see, we have a very robust response. We view this as an excellent opportunity to ensure accountability in our finances and budgeting. And we'll be using this audit to make sure we take these steps seriously. And we'll be reporting back to you at some point in the future on the success of these actions. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and ask you to accept this audit.
There we go. Great job. I mean, I know that you've put a lot into this, Travis, and the director, and you know, it really, when you came to us and told us there was a problem, I mean, I think all of us kind of took a deep breath and we were just like, what does this mean for our future? And so I think that we're finally getting the handle on it, and look forward to seeing what those results, and you did say being successful, so you're being positive about making that work. Comments from the commission?
Yeah, a couple of comments and then a question for you both. You know, what we have here, you know, is we had a technology issue and we had governance issue. And having enjoyed reading your budget 2 years in a row, Travis, and seeing the what goes into the budget and the amount of details that go into the budget. It is one big, complex, complicated document. And I can easily see how you could lose the forest for the trees based on what has to go into the preparation of that budget. And so when we take a look at this error that was created, it was so enormous that we lost sight of the forest. I think you've answered the question with regard to decision-making in finance, because again, we need to tighten up our governance, but do you feel like we've got the right staffing and the right team now, knowing what we know about this convoluted and complicated process? Do we have the right team on board? Do you have enough resources to get this right?
Commissioner Baker, I really appreciate that question, and it's an opportunity to talk about what I do think we have a very good team in the Finance and Budget Division that we've been building over the last several years, put in, you know, key leaders across all of that. You know, we selected Daniel Porter to be the division administrator for the first time after we had sort of matured the organizational structure and allowed him to move into that position. So we have someone who is going to be, you know, responsible and accountable in a whole new way for our budget and finances. And he is taking very seriously the audit findings and the implementation of that. I talk to him regularly about it. We'll continue that conversation. Below him, we have a number of really skilled people who run the various units within that group. And they do an excellent job of managing our finances. One of the things we also put in place when we did that reorganization was to create a fiscal policy steering team that gets together on a monthly basis and hashes out these tough issues around our fund structure. We monitor our cash flow. We look at the budget, and that's actually going to be the place where we bring the implementation issues together. I'm part of that group, and we ask the tough questions and we work through those issues. So yes, I believe we do have both the structure in place and the people filling those roles in that organizational structure who are going to help us achieve these outcomes that we're looking for coming out of this audit. Now, I will say the prospect of deep cuts to the Finance and Budget Division as part of the 25-27 budget, where we would be reduced, I think it's 26 positions, has me very worried about what that would mean for our ability to manage the agency's multi-billion-dollar annual budget effectively. So I can tell you, I think we have the resources and people in place today, but if I have to cut 30% of the staffing in that division, we're going to have some other conversations about how we can effectively manage the finances.
Okay. I'd have a second question with regard to the tools. Do you have the tools that you need in terms of technology to be able to do the job?
Commissioner Baker, I think it's pretty clear that some of our tools are very antiquated. Our cash flow model is extremely antiquated and needs to be replaced. Our accounting system is in a similar place. It's an old COBOL mainframe system. It's called Teams, and it needs to be replaced probably at the, tens of millions of dollars, if not a 9-figure investment. We are looking at that as a potential project that we would move forward with the enterprise when it replaces the state's financial management system. And so I will tell you, we do need some additional resources invested in these accounting systems and our various tools in order to make sure that we can do our work effectively.
Yeah, when you don't have the proper tools, you're going to end up with institutional knowledge that disappears as change goes by. So, shame on us if we run into similar problems because we've lost the institutional knowledge because we don't have the backbone in place to be able to carry forward. But also, that being said, and this is just me thinking out loud, with these black box technologies that you've got where you really don't know what's in there, it might be a good idea to have sampling along the way. When we're in the process of making some big assumptions.
Yeah.
Marlene, run some sampling against those black boxes just to make sure that it's producing the valid results that we're expecting. Because if we're relying on them, we could easily get ourselves caught in a trap. Does that make sense?
Commissioner Baker, I'd say not just makes sense, but that's exactly what Marlene's team did as part of this audit. They pulled projects and then ran it through and found that reality, the actual expenditures did not match the cash flow model. Now that's going to be the case with any cash flow model. Is not going to be dollar for dollar when you're running that, at a point in time, oftentimes 2 to 3 years before the projects actually run. But I think what it showed was there are some very significant limitations of this cash flow model, and it's not really appropriate for using for budgeting at that level where you want more precision. To understand what the expenditures might be on a month-to-month basis when you can look much closer. One of the challenges, this cash flow model is typically looking at 3 years. We run it, so for example, for the 25-27 budget, we ran it in the spring of 24 to estimate project spending through July of 27. Any model is going to err in the numbers, especially think about the fact you just added $250 million to a project that is not included in our cash flow model run for the 25-27 budget. So there are inherent challenges there.
Well, and when you talk about it being a bigger part even of the state and the way that the state runs its budgeting and, reconciliation of all departments, it's concerning to me that we are so far behind. as a state in general. And so I think it's something that we really need to think about because technology is great, but it changes so quickly. And, you know, what we purchase, when you're talking about a purchase of a software program that large, you know, in tens of millions of dollars, how long will that sustain us into the future? And again, where do we get the money to purchase the software? I mean, but we can't go without it. I mean, it's just, it's frustrating to listen to. Yes, Director, I see you going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear, I know your frustration, Chair.
A lot of thoughts. So Madam Chair and Commissioner Baker, and actually all members of the commission, a couple of things to just add to this. To the question around staffing and do we have the right resources? I think as you heard at the beginning, I think the team has really come together and formed a structure and an organization that can really track these things in a better way. In many ways, I think without the restructuring, we wouldn't have found an error like this, or at least not at this time. And so I'm proud of the team for doing that. And no team ever wants to bring forward bad news, right? That's not how we're programmed, but it's part of the job. So I do think the team has the intellect to find it. I think also demonstrated the integrity to bring it forward and not try and find a way to fix it in the background. And then the vulnerability for the ongoing work of having third party and independent evaluation of whether or not the remedies are working. But to your point around what resources might be available outside of the people resources, I mean, we're heavily reliant on the people and the ability for that knowledge transfer and information transfer to continue going forward because of our deficiencies in our system. So investments will be required to bring something that's less people focused forward and bring more stability. That said, high confidence in the people doing the work because we wouldn't have found this without them. And so I thank you for that acknowledgement and appreciation as well. And I do share the same feeling around our investments and where they need to go. And I think as we go through the package discussion, for example, for this year, this will be one of the topics. But the question will be, do we have enough in the end to invest? Because we have to prioritize the things on the ground for Oregonians.
I think my last comment to Marlene, to your team. I mean, I've been very impressed with the audit team in the past, the things that they've uncovered, and thank you for finding a lot of these and making these recommendations. I think that a lot of times people forget that it is a person that is actually looking at data. Data is great, but somebody's got to try to figure out what it is. And you identifying those things. We really appreciate your team. So please tell them thank you.
I will. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, with that said, is there any other comments or questions for Travis before we move on and go to motion? Looking for a motion
Okay.
for item number, where are we?
Chair Brown, I move to accept ODOT's internal audit report number 25-02, internal audit report on budget and capital plan.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Right, we have a second. So don't believe there's any more discussion. I'll ask staff to do a roll call.
Commissioner Chang?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman?
Yes.
Chair Brown?
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay. Just lost my agenda. There it is. Okay, it's 11:15. We're still ahead. So now we're going to move on to autumn. We're going to go to the autumn because it's nicer than the winter. Item J. So tribal information and employment.
I think I'm on here. Madam Chair and members of the commission, good morning. For the record, I'm Angela Crane, manager with ODOT's Office of Equity and Civil Rights. And today I have a guest. Harris, you want to introduce yourself?
It's on.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. Lahayim Fluchisan, Harris Ryback, Naikani. My name is Harris Ryback. I'm the director of our Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Tribal Employment Rights Office. It's a pleasure to be here today presenting alongside Angela, and I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Our first TARO, or Tribal Employment Rights Office, or Ordinance Memorandum of Understanding, and first in the nation, including off-reservation engagement, is with the Umatilla tribe dating back to the 90s. Since we have entered into MOUs with Grand Ronde, Warm Springs, and currently we're consulting with the Klamath Tribe as they just stood up their Taro office December 30th with the hiring of their new Taro director, so just a couple weeks ago. Additionally, we're consulting with 2 Washington tribes, Cowlitz and the Yakima Nation, related to opportunities with the Interstate Bridge Project Replacement Project, or IBR. The Taro program aims to contribute to the prosperity of ODOT's tribal partners, as well as the agency's mission through multiple pathways: wealth creation, investments in the construction trade skills, and workforce diversity. Indian country continues to experience the highest unemployment rates, up to 80%. I'll pause for a second, up to 80%. This directly relates to the structural racism impacting the U.S. economy, affecting educational access and attainment, as well as employment opportunities. This unfortunate story demonstrates the continuous need for government efforts to promote functioning economies among Native communities. We need to do better. ODOT's Taro MOU is one step forward in improving livability on and near our Oregon reservations. This means access to family wage jobs. There are many current and upcoming major projects to offer Taro, such as Grand Ronde's participation on the I-205 Abernathy Bridge, the upcoming Rose Quarter project, which has been selected by the Warm Springs Tribe Taro program, and IBR. We are currently consulting with 4 Taro tribes to offer their participation in the IBR project. We cannot build these projects without our Taro partners. Taro referred employees tend to make at least as much as the median income in the zip code in which they live in, if not more. This is based on data from Oregon-based Taro referred employees over the past 4 years. So this suggests that the Taro program offers wealth creation opportunities for their referred employees. So while our current Taro MOU focuses on labor, we also see opportunities to grow our Indian-owned businesses and provide access to contracting on ODOT projects. So this is something Harris and I are currently collaborating on. So I thank you for the opportunity to share ODOT's experiences with our Taro programs, and now I will pass it to Harris. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, I know we're on, but I do want to say it's always a blessing to be able to work along ODOT and the OCR team. It's just a wonderful collaborative relationship. I see that it really is an example of how 2 governments can come together and work so closely and work intimately in a way that helps so many people. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. Thank you. Is my clicker live? Oh, okay, let's try. Okay, there you go. The Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, for those who aren't familiar, we are a confederated tribes, which means we're made up of over 30 tribes and bands from Western Oregon, Northern California, and Southwest Washington. The 5 primary tribes that we recognize that the remainder of those bands come from are represented in our 5 feathers there of our logo: the Kalapuya, the Umpqua, the Rogue River, the Shasta, and Molalla tribes. A little bit of history about us. Our ancestors came from many different tribes and bands. As I said, we were marched to present-day Grand Ronde in what we call the Trail of Tears. Informally, we call it that. And so really in the current Grand Ronde Reservation, there was one tribe there that had kind of been there for time immemorial, but that's really a big difference between our tribes and some other tribes is some of those other tribes, their tribes have been at that geographic location for years and years and years. And we've been there since the mid-1800s, but we really marched from all those areas. I often say, if you listen to the name of the bands of our tribes, you can, we know where the Rogue River is in Southern Oregon, the Shasta Mountains, we know where Molalla is. So kind of those areas kind of point to the different places we came from. Our sovereignty, which really is kind of at the base of what the Tribal Employment Rights Office is. It couldn't operate without that sovereignty as a nation and the opportunity to exercise that sovereignty. And that sovereignty comes from our treaties. Obviously, I have 7 represented here. I will proudly say that Chief at the bottom, Chief Joseph Sangretta, is a great grandfather of mine. And so he signed the Willamette Valley Treaty that ceded some of that land in 1855. But I always like to acknowledge those treaty signers and kind of what brought the tribe to where it is today in terms of that sovereignty and that status. Yeah, so just I always like to touch base on sovereignty, especially for those maybe that aren't in it all the time. And it's important to know because I often tell contractors we work with, especially the prime contractors on these big projects, that it's important to understand what sovereignty is. Primarily, when they come into contact with others that may not know, it'd be really easy to kind of I wonder how something like that is, even there's what the illegalities around that are even in place, you know, because it's a pretty big thing to set a goal based on ethnicity on a project. And so it all goes back to that sovereignty and what that is. And I always like to use that definition is, you know, sovereignty really just is the acknowledgement of the tribal nations governing themselves from time immemorial. Before, you know, Oregon was named Oregon and the United States had that name, we were governing our own people, our own finances, if you will, our own membership, our own laws and whatnot. So it's just important to touch base on sovereignty. I think for the commissioners to know as well is when anybody asks questions about the relationship between the tribe and the state, sovereignty is a good place to go. So to the Grand Ronde Taro Ordinance, as Angela said, we're one of 4 taros in the state of Oregon. 3 of those 4 have a MOU with the DOT. Our taro was established in 2014. And it was really an opportunity that our tribe looked at to see why projects on our reservation, on our own reservation, weren't staffed quite as much with our own tribal people. A lot of tribal members did build various areas of our tribe, like the casino and whatnot, but there was no formalities behind tribal hiring. It was really just kind of preference. And if they chose to hire tribal members, that was great. But if they didn't, there was nothing tied to that. So we established the ordinance for our tribe to exercise the interests of self-governance, essentially, and the employment opportunities on our reservation. I'm always proud of those who came before me at Taro, and along with Angela's team, because shortly after we established our Taro, we were able to move into an MOU with the DOT, which I'd like to say, if you guys didn't know, and I always like to give kudos to Director Strickler and all of ODOT for this, is because we're only one of about 7 tribes in the United States that have a MOU with their DOT. My understanding is the only other tribes, I think there's a few in Minnesota that have an active MOU with their DOT, meaning that work outside of their reservation, they have some engagement on. You know, I've visited taros from all over the nation, and many times they're just kind of, they're mind blown that we have any engagement in projects outside of our reservation. So it's a big deal, and I'm so grateful for that relationship, and it serves as an example of, again, the collaborative relationship we have. And I'll throw some stats up here to see kind of the impact it's had. But anyway, that's a little bit about our taro. The purpose: to ensure the maximum utilization of Native participation and opportunities on and near the Grand Ronde Reservation, which our MOU with ODOT has a 60-mile radius drawn around our reservation that allows us jurisdiction within that radius. Some of the programs under Taro, we have the Skills Bank program, which is the one that's primarily utilized when we're talking about dispatching individuals to these projects for living wage laborers, equipment operators, flaggers, kind of boots on the ground. At any given moment, we'll have 60 to 70 individuals dispatched working on ODOT projects or reservation projects. We also have the Indian-owned business program, which Angela had mentioned. Currently, we have now over 70 certified Indian-owned businesses, ranging from mom and pop, construction companies to big, significant Indian-owned consulting companies and things like that. And so, like Angela said, we've been working at seeing how we can utilize those Indian-owned businesses on these projects. We have an apprenticeship, internship, on-the-job training program that we utilize the unions and non-unions for. So we're able to put our tribal members through those apprenticeship opportunities in a couple different ways, which is nice. And then we have an individual funding opportunity program where we provide funding to tribal members for various other employment opportunities, aside from the stuff we do with ODOT. Talked a little bit about the Skills Bank. Just a quick note, that's open to Grand Ronde tribal members, along with tribal members of all federally recognized tribes. So they can kind of come and sign up with our Grand Ronde Taro, whether they're a Seminole tribal member from Florida or whatnot. If they're living in the state of Oregon and can work on some of these projects within our jurisdiction, they're eligible to sign up for our program through the Skills Bank. The Skills Bank process is really straightforward. We try to make all of our stuff clean. Basically, they submit an application, we review it and process it. the applicant begins checking into to our office. We review the projects that we've selected or that are coming down the pike, both at ODOT and with our tribe. And then we communicate those opportunities to the applicant. We send a referral out to the contractor through that whole process. And the applicant generally interviews for the position. And if hired, they start working, and we just monitor that and track the goals and whatnot. So. And then on to the Taro ODOT MOU. So similar to the trifecta efforts between Tribal Council, our legal office, and the tribal administration at the time that brought a Taro office forward. When you add Taro into that trifecta along with the DOT, that's when we were able to draft an MOU that took place in early 2014. So January 17th of 2014, it's renegotiated every 5 years. We just came up on our recent negotiations, and that was wonderful. It was nice to communicate that to my tribal council, my Taro commission, that we had renewed that relationship. Really what that MOU does defines that relationship between the ODOT and the Confederated Tribes, specifically Taro, and then the OCER as designees for those two entities. Establish guidelines, ensure compliance, authorized under various federal acts. And it just really allows Grand Ronde Taro to assist eligible individuals to get on these projects. This is that radius I talked about, 60 miles from Grand Ronde. Grand Ronde is that little purple area. You know, about a quarter of our jurisdiction goes out into the Pacific Ocean, but you know, we reach as far as into the Portland metro area, which is you know, obviously a gigantic contributor to our success in terms of getting employment opportunities to our tribal members at Portland metro area. A lot of good projects. However, we have a jurisdiction down south, as you see, and up north on the coast as well. So I will touch base on the contractor certification. So essentially any prime contractor bidding on these projects that have been selected by my program to have jurisdiction over, they go through a contractor certification. We have them quarterly as well as individually if the contractors need it. But essentially it's an expanded version of what I'm giving you now in terms of who we are as Taro, what it means to work with the Tribal Employment Rights Office, what's needed, compliance plans and whatnot. But that's something that's been very successful, and I'm proud of that. We've gained a lot of really good relationship with significant contractors that do work with the state through those certification opportunities. This is a breakdown of how essentially the projects are selected. So we meet with ODOT actually monthly, but annually we meet with the ODOT OCER to analyze the STIP and to see what projects fall under our jurisdiction. And then we closely analyze, I always like to elaborate on that. We analyze closely the various areas of the project that would essentially make it a good fit for my program to select, such as scope, duration, labor needs, and whatnot. So we analyze that. We select the projects prior to the bid issue date. ODOT issues the bid with the Taro provisions and goals. I always like to stop real quick when I get to that box because ODOT and OCER does such a good job at making contractors aware from the get-go that it's a Taro project. That's something that is always something I try to steer clear from in terms of a contractor not being aware that it's an ODOT project, especially, or a Taro project, especially when there's that certification needed by them. So ODOT does a great job at getting ahead of that, and right from the bid issue kind of portion of the process, they make folks aware. Basically, the project's awarded. Taro sits in on all the pre-construction meetings. We execute all our compliance agreements with the prime and all the subs who are going to be on the project, and then we refer the workers to those contractors, and the process continues. So. This is just a snapshot of our 2023 projects. We had 11 ODOT projects that year and 19 tribal projects. There's a list of some of the projects off to the side. The Quina Bay Bridge was a big one, and then the rest of them are there. And then our tribal projects as well. We had some pretty significant tribal projects that we were working on and are still, and so it keeps us busy. Some stats. This is really my favorite part of the whole piece. I think these were October 23 to October 24. These stats were taken from there, but we had 17 ODOT projects, 18 tribal projects, 37,202 total hours. That was both with ODOT and tribal. Wages paid, and that's always one of my favorites. Someone told me that they wanted to trademark that saying. I always say it's shoes on the feet and food on the fridge, food in the fridge. that's kind of what I view the wages paid stat, because it's real, it's a tangible statistic that's, went to contribute to the livelihood of people and their families. And so wages paid to those individuals between October 23 and 24 were 1.4 million essentially. And then we dispatched 86 people to different projects, and then assisted over 100 clients with training and funding opportunities to advance their skill set. So just a couple of pictures of some ODOT projects. Currently, as Angela stated, we're on the I-205 Abernathy. That's been a great project. I believe we have around 20 individuals dispatched to that project right now. So it's the biggest one we've ever taken part in. And it's been a good opportunity to exercise our capabilities and see what we're able to do. And it's been really a successful project. Some of our tribal projects there, various projects, all projects that happen within the Spirit Mountain Casino are also under my program's jurisdiction. And so there's some projects there. Trainings are a big part of what we do. Spend a lot of funding and time and effort, for lack of better words, into putting on these trainings, everything from heavy equipment operator training, CDLs. As you may know, the need for a lot of those skills are in demand right now. Plumbing, HVAC, electrical, all that kind of stuff. And so we do all those kind of trainings. With that said, cruise right through that. Hayumasi, like I said, I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you guys and present. So thank you.
So comments or questions? I know I have some, but you want me to go? Okay, I'm gonna go.
Oh, please
So
do.
one thing, just so that you're aware, CDL training, we need bus drivers. Transit needs bus drivers. So we should talk.
Sure.
That's something that can touch the entire state of Oregon. So, and there's a lot of tribes that touch all of the places where we live. But the one thing that I've always been really worried about is that as we invest in all of these apprenticeships and trying to move people forward, that we continue and we follow and make sure that they're able to maintain those jobs. So once a project is completed, where do they go? What happens? Can they continue down that road? And so I don't know if you have any of that continuation that you work with, and if you could speak to that, but that is something that Abernathy Bridge was one of the questions I had when we were walking the bridge, and they were talking about the apprenticeship program. Said, so when this bridge is completed, then what is their opportunity? So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will touch base too on the CDL need. We see that at the tribe. We need bus drivers for our schools at the tribe. So I understand that CDL, that the need for that is significant. And that's a wonderful question in terms of retention and what happens after. So the one really neat, unique thing about the I-205 project and these bigger UMO projects is that an individual can essentially enter into an apprenticeship opportunity and then journey out. Get all their apprenticeship hours on one project and then leave that project 5 years later, 7 years later, whatnot, and be a journeyman laborer, carpenter, electrician, what have you. So that's a wonderful thing. And we see a lot of that. In terms of retention at Terrell and the people we dispatch, we track that closely. And one thing I'm proud of is generally when we send, I would say there's a good 50% individuals that when we dispatch them out and their duration with the contractor ends, the contractor will follow up with us and say, hey, we're moving on to another project that's outside of your jurisdiction, but just let you know we're keeping that individual on our payroll. And that's a sign of success, we feel. And it also keeps us continuously in this loop of, losing kind of our best workers and then recruiting for more workers to do that. And so, but we keep close track of that. And I'm proud to say that a lot of times the contractors will keep those individuals. That kind of folds into then those individuals become full-time employees of that contractor. And generally the contractor, if they come back to work for a project that's within our jurisdiction, we're able to count those individuals that are then working for them toward that goal. And we really view that as, the ultimate goal of Terrell is to foster employment within Indian country. And we want to reward that contractor for hiring that individual and counting them towards the goal. And a lot of the effort is on the individual too. I mean, they work hard. These are hard, laborious jobs, and they work hard to earn that full-time position. But what wonderful question. I have that same thought in terms of long-term success of those opportunities. So thank you.
Well, and I think the other thing that I think about is family. So, your culture it's very similar to my belief in family. And so I know with my children, as they have become knowledgeable and gotten their skill level up to do different things and projects, then when the project moves, they don't want to leave family. And so, you know, one of the things I in my thought process is like, we have ODOT regions, you know, and we're always looking for workers. And then there's another opportunity, I think, as we build our workforce at ODOT to think about the future of that, because maybe it isn't being moving with that contractor, but staying in your own community and be able to have a job that is a wage that will actually make a difference in their lives. So just, those are just things that flow through my brain, which is scary, but just wanted to share that with you, because I think about that a lot, is how do we develop our workforce at ODOT for the future? And, you know, there's a lot of people retiring, and as we are building our transportation network and trying to do our road projects and all our bridge projects and all these things, we need a workforce out there too. So something else, I'm sure you already are thinking about that. But other comments or questions? Yes.
I must say to you, Eris, congratulations. This is inspiring to hear the work that you're doing. And so good work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Great.
If there's no further questions, we thank you very much for your time and sharing our program.
Thank you. And come back and share again. This is exciting when I see those kind of numbers and that kind of development of the program, because we don't always see the positive things. And so we should just have something positive. Just come back every month, please, and give us an update.
Happy to.
Yeah, put me on the calendar. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Take care.
Thank you.
I know it's been a good day. It has been a very positive day. Are we going to keep that flow going? All right. We're almost through our agenda, and so it's great to see all these positive things. So we're at item K, DMV.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, I'm once again Travis Brower, ODOT's Assistant Director for Revenue Finance Compliance. And we're going to give you an update on where the DMV is on their work related to the motor voter program and our data integrity review. I have to say that clearly we had some very significant challenges that were found last summer in September and October. And DMV has worked very, very hard to address these. And I want to give credit to Amy for owning this and taking the appropriate steps to make sure that we have found ways to close the gaps that we found in our process of providing data to the Secretary of State's office for voter registration. So Ms. Joyce is going to walk you through the background of what we have done specifically related to motor voter. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the data integrity review that we're undertaking that is both designed to address some of the issues with motor voter, but is much broader than that, and looking at DMV's overall capabilities in managing its data and governing its data.
Chair Brown, members of the commission, I am Amy Joyce. I am Oregon's DMV administrator. So grounding us just a little bit in to remind us all of where we are on this thing. So DMV participates in two ways with voter registration in the state of Oregon. One is the National Federal Motor Voter Program since 1995 that all states participate in, where if someone comes to the counter and they appear that they might be eligible to vote, we ask you, do you want to register to vote? And then provide them the opportunity to proactively register there at the DMV. The second portion is Oregon's motor voter program. Oregon was the first in the nation to institute automatic voter registration in 2016, whereby when somebody comes to the counter at DMV and presents a document that demonstrates they are necessarily a U.S. citizen and therefore eligible to vote, we automatically take that data and transfer it to Secretary of State so that they can, the Secretary can complete their portion of the transaction, which is they offer that person the opportunity to opt out or choose a political party, but it's effectively automatic voter registration with an opt-out opportunity. And we've been doing that since 2016. So next slide, please. So we discovered in very late August, early September of 2024 that there was a very small number of records that were being sent over to Secretary of State in error. That is, that people who are not citizens were having their data transferred. Now, I say it was a very small number, and in raw numbers, it was a very small number. But I don't want to discount the importance of this. One is too many in this situation, and so we recognize that. The primary or direct cause of how this happened was data entry errors in the field office, and it was sort of exacerbated or made more possible by the fact that the drop-down menu that we were using for folks at the field office to enter information defaulted to entry of a document that would demonstrate citizenship, like U.S. passport or U.S. birth certificate. And so you can see here, this is the screen before changes that our staff would see. And so, for example, if one of our staff tried to, be very efficient and just type in the first couple of words of passport, the first thing that would pop up is U.S. passport. And that, in the desire to be efficient, we set up a situation where it was easier to make a mistake. Next slide, please. The second primary cause of errors was a policy misunderstanding by DMV when we set up Oregon's motor voter automatic voter registration system, which was a misunderstanding that people from the U.S. territory of American Samoa, we believe that they were U.S. citizens. They are not. They are U.S. nationals, unless they've taken proactive steps to become a citizen. And therefore, anyone who presented a U.S. passport that was from American Samoa or a American Samoa birth certificate, we were coding them in a way that indicated citizenship, and that was in error. So that was another source beyond clerical error. Next slide, please. So having identified the error and daylighting that and taking some very fast steps to make some corrections, Governor Kotek gave a series of directions to us to shore up not only Oregon motor voter, but also DMV data in general. So a number of these things: provide updated training, analyze and report on how the errors occurred and the corrective actions that have been taken, conduct a DMV data integrity review beyond Oregon motor voter to more broadly the driver and identity information data that DMV has on most Oregonians. And have that overseen by an external panel of experts and produce some initial recommendations by the end of 2024. We were directed to set a data control quality calendar in conjunction with Secretary of State to ensure data integrity ahead of elections. An independent audit of the Oregon motor voter process, both on the DMV side and on the Secretary of State side of that process. And also to pause the transfer of the OMV data until the governor was satisfied that the appropriate corrections had taken place and the integrity of OMV data was ensured. Next slide, please. So the corrections we've put in place, you can see a number of them there. I want to mention the two most critical items that we did. There were several smaller measures that were taken very immediately to sort of, staunch the bleeding. But the two most critical was a daily check of data. So comparing by a manager or lead in a field office, comparing the data that was entered into the system to the document that was presented. So it's what ends up being a sort of third check for data accuracy that happens every single day for field offices. That has been a really important element. And then secondly, we changed those drop-down menus, again, a number of different ways, but the biggest one that had the biggest impact, I think, is separating out. So the first thing that our staff select is, does this document show that the person is a citizen or does not show that they are a citizen? So that's your first selection. And then from there, you can choose what kind of document you've got. And there are a number of other things that we did as well. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this is the example, right? So after the staff chooses the document shows citizenship or doesn't show citizenship, now a different screen pops up, right? So this is, you've selected the document shows citizenship. So now the drop-down menu only has documents that definitively show citizenship. And next slide, please. If you choose the other one, these are documents that either definitively show that you are not a citizen or it's questionable. The most common example would be you move here from another state, you show your Oklahoma driver's license and demonstrate you live in Oregon. You can get a license or an ID card, but it doesn't tell us you definitely are a citizen or you definitely are not. So you'd be in this, and that staff have really applauded that change, that it makes it so much easier for them to mitigate mistakes. And next slide, please. So staff training has been huge. So immediately we got to work with training, and it's been intensive. And it's been repeated, and it is now more systemic and ongoing within DMV. And it focuses on a couple of different things. So certainly the mechanics, right? How you do this, what to type in, new screens, this is how you work it. But very importantly, and something we probably fell short on earlier, is the why, right? Why is it critical that we get this correct? What is the impact when you choose this thing on voter registration? For the sake of Secretary of State and the integrity of the rolls, but also the impact on our customers, to indicate that somebody is a citizen and have them automatically registered to vote when they are not is a terrible impact on a customer. So discussing the why it's critical and why this is so critically important to get right has been very impactful. I think it is for all of us, right? When we understand why we're doing what we're doing. And so we continue that work. And then, of course, encouraging our staff, continuous improvement, feedback. How can we make this better, easier to get it right? So those are the things we've been doing.
Thanks, Amy. I'm going to walk you through the data integrity work that we're doing that covers both motor voter and the larger areas. So we have created a monthly record sampling and error reporting process. This is that data quality control calendar. We opted to do this on a monthly basis and sample about 500 records of recent transactions. We have found exactly 0 errors in our sampling of records that have come from transactions since the mitigations were put in place. The final set of mitigations really in early October. So that is excellent news that shows really that the things that DMV has done seem to be addressing the issues that we had in the past. As part of that, we have an error review and reporting process for the Secretary of State. So that when we uncover errors, so far we've not uncovered any errors in new transactions, but we do have some legacy errors that were, before we put these mitigations in place, so that when those do occur, and we found a couple in our first couple of reports, we investigate those, find out what the source is, report those to the Secretary of State so they can inactivate the voters and address that quickly. We have also hired a voter registration integrity analyst who's going to start on Tuesday, actually, who's going to oversee our improvement work to make sure that everything we have done is effective, that we can sustain these efforts, and that if there are any additional things that we need to do, that those are put in place. They will be part of our audit group that is going to work with the DAS audit that I'll cover in just a moment. And they'll also be part of that data integrity review staff team within ODOT, so that they'll be charged with making sure that anything that comes out of those is implemented effectively in partnership with DMV. As we noted, DAS is undertaking a OMV audit that they have hired a firm named Baker Tilly to undertake that work. They're still in the process of developing the audit scope. I believe that they expect that they'll be able to begin field work either later this month or early next month, and we should have the findings of that audit by April 30th. So there's nothing really to report there. We are the auditee in this case, so it is not something we are directing, but certainly we are deeply engaged in that work. And then we are undertaking that larger data integrity review that Governor Kotek directed us to do. We have created an expert review team to help oversee that and provide input, and I'll walk you through the members of that. We hired the consulting firm Deloitte to undertake the in-depth review, and they have sent a team of professionals out to work with us and really engage on a deep level. They're one of the leaders in this field. And then we separately undertook a data quality maturity assessment at DMV to really understand our current state. So the data, boy, I can mangle my words pretty well there. So the data integrity review expert review team is made up of folks who have experience in working in data integrity across the country. As you can see, we have folks from within the enterprise, the state chief data officer, who's an important member. We have the former Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administrator, who is also the recently retired CEO of the American Association of Motor Vehicle Administrators, and so has experience of this at the federal level and managing the Association of DMVs, which actually plays a very important role in data integrity of a variety of processes. And then we have some representatives who are current and former DMV senior officials. The person from Washington is a key member of their data stewardship office and handles privacy and data stewardship there. We have the administrator of the Maryland Motor Vehicle Administration, officials from Idaho, a former person from the Colorado DMV. And then we have someone from the Institute for Responsive Government, who was the former Oregon Elections Division Administrator and was also the director of the ERIC system that exchanges data between secretaries of state on voter registration to make sure that people aren't registered in multiple states. So all these folks are really good. You know, you always, when you put together a group like this, you're worried that you're going to give a presentation and ask them for feedback and input and have a discussion, and it's going to be crickets. That's not the case with this group. You know, we get through about 2 minutes of a slide presentation, and they're already peppering us with questions and feedback, and really, really good engagement of this group that I think will be really helpful in helping us, already understand where some of the challenges are, how we can get better, and they're going to be looking at their next meeting next week at the preliminary findings that we got from Deloitte and starting to think about how we can help implement that. We did receive the preliminary data integrity review report from Deloitte right before Christmas. They did extremely good work very, very quickly with their team to come in and look at our work. There was a component of that was related to the Oregon Motor Voter Program. They were asked specifically to look at that, given the governor's direction that she wanted to have some question about whether we'd be able to sustain that level of effort in the long term. So we're going to be looking for measures that we could put in place that would be just as effective, but perhaps a little bit less difficult. They made 14 initial observations in their report, which we provided to you. At this point, they are working to translate those initial observations into actionable items, and we're working very closely with them on that. Things like integrated data governance, how we handle that decision-making and management of data, both at the agency level and within DMV, that partnership between our chief data office and DMV. There was a lot in the report about our capability to extract the data from our system, which is an excellent new system that we have, but then we're going to have to work on how we can get those reports, and then about how we have the capability within DMV and ODOT to analyze that data. Most state government agencies probably are not yet well equipped with the data scientists and data analytics that are needed to really understand data. And so we're going to be looking at that. And then one of the themes throughout, there was a number of findings or observations related to DMV staffing, the number of staff that we have, their development, their compensation. These are themes that Deloitte heard and that we have also heard actually from that expert review team. Amy was giving a presentation at the initial meeting about how we were staffed and structured. And one of the people immediately stopped and said, "Whoa, can you say that staffing number again?" And we were afraid that maybe we were overstaffed. But when we laid out our staffing levels, every one of the other DMVs said that sounds really low compared to what we have in our DMV. We got data back from the Maryland DMV, and I did an extrapolation by population. They have approximately 50% more DMV field office staff than we do per population base. And so that is just an indication that we may need to look at more staffing, higher levels of compensation for some, so that we're able to bring in people who can do the work that we need, and then work on that development and training of our staff as well. So Deloitte's going to flesh these out in greater detail with the final report due at the end of February. So with that, we would be happy to answer any questions or take any comments about this work that we're doing.
So I can guarantee you there's not an Oregonian alive that wouldn't like to see additional staffing and higher paid employees at the DMV. So I look forward to that report. Amy, I want to thank you and your staff, because this could have been a disaster. You guys found it at the right time. It was before the election. We were able to address it and take it on. So that there wasn't a question about integrity into our voting. And I think that the amount of time, I know, because, you know, I was getting reports from the director of the overtime that the staff were staying and going through all this data and trying to reconcile it was amazing. And just please let them know thank you from the commission, because we appreciate it. And I know the governor's office did too. So
Thank you very much, Chair. I will convey that. Thank you.
All right.
I mean, I would.
That's okay. We don't want you to talk, Commissioner.
I would also, as someone who participates in elections, motor voter is an incredible opportunity for Oregonians to participate in the democratic process, and I really appreciate the work that's been done to ensure that people can have access to that opportunity and trust in the integrity of our election systems. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right. Well, thank you. Boy, it's been positive. It's a positive day. It's a banner day. We better write this one down in the history book. There you go. All right, let's keep that positive trend on our last agenda item.
That should be easy. We're going to talk about helping school children get to school by walking and biking. Suzanne Carlson, Public Transportation Division Administrator, and I want to talk with you about the Safe Route School program and then introduce the 2025-2026 project list for your approval. Next slide. So this is a refresher. I'm sure you're all familiar. Safe Route School state-funded program was created through House Bill 2017, the construction program. So this is to make infrastructure improvements around schools that will create that opportunity and safety for walking and biking to school. It initially was $10 million a year from 2018, and then that went up to $15 million in 2023. You all also had the opportunity and invested more funds from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. That was $30 million added into the program. Nonetheless, we do find that applications the demand exceeds the amount of money we're able to award. That's been about 2.5 to 3 times for every dollar that we had available. In this latest round, it was closer to 4.5 times greater demand than we were able to fund. So we're really seeing some great interest and people stepping forward to make these investments in their community. We also have a great improvement to the program, which is that there's a reduced match available, which is increasing that opportunity for lower income communities, lower income school populations to participate and to go into the program with either it's a 40% match normally, and then there was a reduced match at 20%. Now the opportunity is for a 10.27% match if they meet one eligibility criteria, or 0% if they meet multiple. And the criteria is that the school is in a city with a population of 25,000 or fewer people, that it has 40% or more students who are low income at the school, or that the project will reduce hazards within a priority safety corridor, which are corridors that have multiple risk factors. So with one of those elements, they get the 10.27% reduced match, and with multiple, it's down to 0. And you'll see from the project list that every project coming forward right now is meeting at least one of those criteria, and then a smaller number meeting multiple criteria to get the 0% match. Next slide. So since we've started these investments, we have built 104, well, we have 104 construction projects, of which 47 are complete. We've got another 25 in construction, and I think it should be 32 in design to add up to 104. And you'll see those on the map here. We've also additionally mapped 2 other programs here, which is we have a project identification program. So to help create that pipeline and to get communities prepared, we do help them with Safe Route School plans to help develop projects. And then we also have education grants supported by Amy Joyce's group in traffic safety that helps with those. And we like to do education in the same communities where we can. And so we've got education program, 24 federally funded education grants across the state. Next slide. So just a couple example of completed projects. Douglas County did a project around Green Elementary School, and looking at the school catchment area and the location of the investment, we estimate that about 40% more of the students who are traveling to that school are able to choose a safer route to school where this investment has been made. So in that example, we built continuous crosswalks and bike lanes on Carnes Road, increased the visibility of crossings with Carnes Road and a few others, managed the vehicle access to the school, and posted school warning signs and street markings that help the drivers be more aware of children traveling to school. And then in the city of Ontario, again, using that same methodology, we're estimating that 31% more students were able to access safer routes to school starting in 2023 when we completed that project. That's to Alameda Elementary School, May Roberts Elementary School, and Ontario Middle School. We constructed over 4,000 linear feet of new sidewalk, and we added 22 ADA ramps near those schools as well. So again, increasing safe access. Next slide. So for this year's round, or all year's rounds, but specific to this year, we started in fall of 2023. So the Safe Route School Advisory Committee helps set the criteria and the scoring matrix. And so before the project selection even begins, they're setting out criteria around equity, safety, and project readiness that would make a successful project. Last summer, we opened up the application round. We got 89 applications. You'll see 28 on the list for approval. So we got $138 million in for the ability to award $31 million in projects. ODOT staff takes the first look at those, scores the applications along that matrix, and provides that to our advisory committee. The advisory committee then meets and ranks the projects, or rather, excuse me, I believe the staff ranks it, and then they look at that ranking, discuss, and recommend the project list forward to the Oregon Transportation Commission. A note about the advisory committee is that it's about 15, I believe it's 16 people right now, it tends to be around 15. We do open applications, and we communicate out and try to get the public interested to spread the word and get folks to apply. The director, ODOT director, does appoint the committee. The statute requires that we include representatives from the Oregon Transportation Safety Commission, the Oregon Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, a Safe Route School practitioner working in one of the schools, a school district transportation representative, a representative from one of the eligible entities, which is, I might have this on a different page, a school, a city, a county, ODOT, or a tribal entity. And then there's also equity and safety representation on that committee, and they meet quarterly. Next slide. So the recommended project list, we did a little bit of analysis of what the projects look like. Again, it's $31 million on 28 projects with those reduced match opportunities. So most of the funds are going to go to low income schools. That's 96% of the schools that you'll see on the list there. Cities made up the bulk of the applicants, or successful applicants, at about 38%, and then counties, ODOT, and we do have one tribe that is recommended, Confederated Tribes, that's recommended for a project, excuse me. We also found that communities with a population of under 25,000 people were particularly successful. That's more than half of the applicants. And communities outside of a metropolitan planning organization are also coming in as the majority, which is a change from the past. And we do think that that lowered match opportunity is again shifting the project list and the people who are putting in successful applications and allowing smaller communities to be more competitive for these funds. Next slide. So today I'm happy to answer questions, and then we're requesting your approval of the project list. If and when we get that, we will start our grant agreements and execute those in the next 6 months. And then the projects will have 5 years to complete the projects.
Some questions from the commission. Sure, Jim.
Suzanne, I see that, in the recommended projects list, there's a pretty good regional spread of projects. Is there a requirement around kind of distributing the funds across all ODOT regions, or does it just kind of happen organically?
There's not a requirement, and you're making me realize I may have skipped a bullet point, which is that Region 2 was the most successful. It also is our largest ODOT region and has the most schools in it, which I think I had on a prior slide. I do not believe there's a requirement for geographic dispersion. No, it's something we look at and then sort of balance whether we always want to serve all the regions, but then of course there's more schools in some areas too. So that is why Region 2 tends to be more successful as well, as there's just more opportunity there.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a regional distribution formula, it would have to be kind of weighted probably based on school population or something like that.
Right. And as you noted, we did show you the list by region, so you get a chance to see some of that dispersion.
Any questions? I mean, I think once again, we see when it's oversubscribed that the need is great. And, it's just, I'm thrilled for the communities that are getting that, but there's also communities that didn't get their project funded. So we have more work. We're not going to get off easy.
No.
Sorry. So with that said, it doesn't sound like there's any other questions, but you do need a motion for us to accept the list of projects.
Chair Brown, I move to approve the recommended projects for the Safe Routes to School 2025 to 2026 competitive construction grant program, including reduced match for eligible entities on qualified projects.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. No, any more discussion? All right. Can I get a roll call from staff?
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes.
Commissioner Chapman?
Yes.
Chair Brown?
Yes. And before you leave, congratulations on your permanent
Oh, thank you.
position as our administrator of public transit.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you for your support of this program.
Well, thank you. Well, now that we've set the bar really high that all meetings will go like this for the rest of 2025, by the end of this, maybe I'll have my brown hair back. I don't know. With that said, I believe we are going to adjourn.